So, hey guys. Hope you are doing great. Welcome to Just a Shinobi. So, this is the story about what if Naruto awakens Ashura chakra in Chunin exam. Part 3. Hope you love previous parts. I am sure you will love this what if. And if you did, please hit the subscribe button for more awesome videos like this. Check out my other videos, share with your friends and enjoy them. Check out the description. Comment down your opinion. So, without wasting any time, let's see today's what if. Chapter 14 Belief and Hope. Orochimaru. Huh? Jiraiya asked in a low whisper with a bit of surprise. He certainly wasn't expecting the blonde to ask about him. There was a moment of silence and Naruto saw the Toad-Sannin stare at the sky with a saddened gaze. A sudden gust of wind passed by them which made Naruto cover his face for a few seconds. Looking back at his godfather, he felt a little down for asking the question. Why do you wish to know about him, Naruto? Jiraiya finally asked firmly, looking towards the blonde. Once again, Naruto stammered, wondering if he must tell him the reasons for his curiosity about Orochimaru. I just want to know why he turned out the way he is. During the time that I was with him, he always spoke about uncovering the secrets of chakra, learning all the jutsus there are, and he seemed particularly immersed in the idea of immortality. He did not speak much to me, but when he did, he always spoke about how different my chakra is compared to all the ninjas he has encountered over the years and that he wanted to uncover the secrets of my body. It was like he thought about nothing else other than those things. I know, Kachan, you and he were teammates earlier and fought for Konoha during the Second Shinobi War. But, I just can't understand why a shinobi like him would abandon his home, the very foundation of Will of Fire, and become so detached and inhuman. Naruto replied honestly. Till now, he had never spoken about what he had gone through or how he felt during that time with anyone other than Sai. But, he also knew there was no one who knew or understood Orochimaru better than his godfather. Despite being a traitor to his home and abandoning everything he had been taught to believe in, Naruto had noticed that Orochimaru considered his mother and Oji-chan in high regards because of the power they possessed. Jiraiya sighed as he heard Naruto's words. He never did like talking about his relationship with the Snake Sannin. During their genin days, Jiraiya would always chase after him, trying to be as cool as him and in trying to do so, he had Fanjutsu and chakra and would go to any measures to see his goals accomplished. Even after knowing him for so many years, he never really could figure out what his fellow Sannin really yearned for. He had his guesses, but he was never certain when it came to Orochimaru. Unnoticed by Naruto, Jiraiya smiled slightly as he realized Naruto was willing to talk a little about his feelings during that time. Though he did not like the subject at hand, he would indulge the blonde a bit. Orochimaru was always a quiet one during our time at the academy, and even then, not many people talked to him or hung out with him. He was the smartest person in the class. Be it ninjutsu, taijutsu or academics, he was always the top of his high intellect that he couldn't talk to children our age back then. But despite all that, he was never cruel or ruthless. He was blunt about the things he thought and believed in, but he never showed off. He was the type of ninja that I always aspired to be back then. Jiraiya said with a nostalgic look on his face. Looking at Naruto's face, Jiraiya understood his train of thoughts. Hard to believe huh? Jiraiya questioned. Naruto merely nodded, not knowing what to answer. Sitting cross-legged and keeping both his hands behind himself for support, he once again looked at the dimming sky, as if looking for answers himself. He never really thought about his genin days or rather his troubling past with Orochimaru nowadays. To him, it seemed like a lifetime ago. It was just after the first Shinobi War that Orochimaru's parent had died on a mission. There was still a lot of tension going on between the Great Five villages. It hadn't been long since the villages were formed and the clans from different lands still festered their hatred against those from Konoha. Shinobis from different villages were extremely hostile against each other. No one knew the details of his parents' death, but since then he began to change. It wasn't much for people to notice, especially for those who didn't know him well. But, I could tell. He began questioning things that no one of our age should have. Despite all of that, he was still loyal to the village and he behaved the same way with Tsunade and I. As the years went on, we fought many battles together for the sake of Konoha and he never showed any signs of ever betraying. He was Sarutobi-sensei's favorite student. Jiraiya stated with a dry chuckle. So, Sandaime Jiji was hurt the most by his actions, nah? Naruto questioned. He was intrigued by the stories Jiraiya was telling. It was certainly hard for him to believe that Orochimaru was anything but a cold-blooded person. Yet, from what he had heard so far, he was beginning to understand maybe a little of the Snake Sannin's past. That is right. Jiraiya replied grimly. He was appalled when he learned that Orochimaru had betrayed the village and run off, so, he couldn't even begin to understand what his sensei was going through at that time. Both Jiraiya and Naruto became quiet as they stared down at the village which was still hustling with people. By now, the sun had already set and the moon shone brightly over the village. From a non-shinobi's perspective, the village truly symbolized the epitome of beauty and peace. Oji-chan, do you know what Orochimaru did to betray the village? Naruto asked, albeit a little sadly. From the continued silence, he had understood that this was a sore matter for him. But, he still wished to know more about the man. He hated the man for he did to him in the past, but he still wished to know the circumstances which led him to become what he is. Ever since he started training in the shinobi arts, he understood that pain, tragedy and hatred were a constant figure in a shinobi's life. Hearing that question, Jiraiya's face gained a serious look. He glanced towards the blonde for a few seconds without uttering a single word. He didn't know what Orochimaru had done with Naruto during that time, he was sure it wasn't anything good to talk about. But, Naruto was asking an awful lot of questions about his former teammate. Discarding the doubt from his mind, he smiled slightly. He was certain Naruto would never do anything to endanger the village. Naruto, there are some answers which should never surface to the top for the sake of others. If the circumstances that led to Orochimaru betraying the village became public knowledge, it would bring chaos among the villagers of Konohagakure no Sado. Most of the Jounin and even several of the high-ranking officials are not aware of the circumstances which led to him fleeing. Jiraiya said authoritatively. Seeing Naruto's face, he raised his hand to stop him from saying anything further. Naruto's eyes widened a little upon seeing Jiraiya's face. So, he obliged and kept quiet. I didn't think Koji-chan would get angry if I had asked about him. Thought Naruto as he lowered his head. Yes, I am aware why he left, but I don't think you are ready for it here yet. Jiraiya stated firmly. Understanding what his Oji-chan was saying, Naruto didn't ask any further questions. He realized it must be a village secret which he was not at liberty to give away. Lying down on the ground, he closed his eyes to clear his head a little. He felt at peace as the slight breeze hit his face, giving him a tingling sensation in his body. Answer me something, Naruto. Jiraiya asked with his eyes focused on the ocean of stars in the night sky. What is it, Oji-chan? Naruto asked casually. Are we humans because we gaze at the stars or do we gaze at the stars because we are humans? Naruto raised an eyebrow at the question but didn't say anything. He simply laid his eyes out at the stars and pondered about it. His young mind could not really process the answer precisely as it could be seen from the thoughtful look on his face. Both sat quietly for more than 10 minutes before Jiraiya eventually got up. Let's get back home, Naruto. Your mother must be wondering where you are. It has become quite late. Jiraiya said with a slight shudder. Tsunade was a little too protective of her son. Hi Oji-chan. Naruto replied as he giggled lightly. 2 days later. It was late in the morning and Naruto lay comfortably in his bed under the warmth of his blanket. As he slowly opened his eyes, he immediately put his hand above his face to block the sunlight from hitting his eyes. As a few seconds passed by, he sat up on the bed with a somewhat tried look. He yawned lazily and stretched his hands. He could still feel the soreness from last evening's taijutsu practice which he had with his mother. He knew his mother was among the finest shinobi in the elemental nations when it came to taijutsu, but he didn't think she would be so hard on him. Damn. Most my body is still sore from the beating I took. I really do need to focus more on my physical strength. Thought Naruto as he released a tired sigh. It was true indeed. The past few years, Naruto had devoted most of his time learning and understanding various ninjutsu, advancing his fuinjutsu skills and improving his control over Mokuton, that he did not focus much on his taijutsu. He was aware that he possessed incredibly large reserves of chakra, but he was reminded yesterday that having large amounts of chakra would not help him if he was forced into a fight where he had to rely solely on his taijutsu. He sighed once again as he remembered what his mother and Oji-chan had told him about yesterday. Even though he was burdened with the task of keeping Konoha safe by keeping the two-tailed beasts at bay, over the years he had come to see the Kyuubi and Sanbi more than just beasts made of chakra who cared only for destruction. He would hate it if the two Bijuas were forcefully taken from him. He couldn't really express it in words, but he had formed a certain bond with them. Flashback. Naruto, Tsunade and Jiraiya sat in the training grounds of the Senju compound. It was located to the west of the main house of the compound, where the current Senju family now resided. Tsunade had left Shizune in charge of the hospital while she had come to train Naruto. She had decided that she was not going to force him into learning a particular style of taijutsu, rather make him adapt according to his own strength. It had been a good 5 years since he started training in the arts of shinobi, and she was astounded by his improvement in ninjutsu, fuinjutsu and even medical ninjutsu. It had been a tiring work to make Naruto to learn to heal himself. Even though she knew the Bijuas inside of him would always heal him of injuries he might receive, it was always considered beneficial for a ninja to know a little amount of medical ninjutsu in case of emergencies. Despite having trained Naruto in taijutsu and overlooking his physical exercises since he was 5, she had never pushed him too hard. In the past 5 years, even Jiraiya had only helped Naruto in ninjutsu, helping him learn the concepts of each jutsus and how to use one depending on the situation. While none of them could use Mokuton, she was glad her grandfather had left a few notes about his Kekkei Genkai in the Senju clan library, which proved to be extremely helpful for her son. But, now that his body had gotten used to all the physical exercises and general taijutsu katas she made him go through, as well as the ninjutsu and fuinjutsu he had learned over the years, she wanted to take it up a notch. She knew her son was an extremely capable shinobi, even according to some jounin, but knowing the threat he would facing in the future, she had to make sure his strength would be up to par with those of his enemies. The thought of losing her son made her tremble with fear and worry. She had already lost most of the people she cared about, and even though she was not Naruto's biological mother, she had come to view him as her own flesh and blood. Looking towards her favorite blonde, she was certain Naruto would become a shinobi who would become more renowned than the Shodai Hokage. She chuckled lightly, knowing her only reasoning for such thoughts was a mother's intuition. "Naruto, now listen to me carefully, okay?" Tsunade said seriously. "Hi, Ka-chan," replied Naruto, giving his full attention to his mother. He didn't know what his mother and Jiraiya wished to talk about, but looking at the seriousness on their faces, he gulped a little. "The physical exercises along with the chakra control exercises that you have been doing over the years have made your body stronger, faster and adept at handling rough physical exercises. That is the foundation for any shinobi who wants to grow their strength. The past few years you have learned the concepts and practical usage of various ninjutsu, and your knowledge in fuinjutsu has increased dramatically. However, now I believe it's time for you to reflect on what you have learned over the years and master everything to the point that you don't feel any strain on your body or chakra when performing shinobi techniques." Tsunade explained briefly. "What do you mean, Ka-chan? I already have good knowledge of everything I have learned over the years," Naruto replied with a confused face. "Learning a jutsu and mastering a jutsu are two different things, Naruto. Some jutsus require more than several hand seals to be used when you learn it in the beginning, but if you can master the jutsu completely, you can perform it with either one or no hand seals at all. The Kage Bunshin no jutsu normally requires 2 hand seals to perform the jutsu, but if you get more familiarized with the technique, it's possible to perform it with 1 or no hand seals too. Also, the better you are at performing a jutsu, the better you will become at controlling the amount of chakra used by the jutsu." Jiraiya stated in detail as he got up from the ground and dusted himself off. Tsunade nodded, agreeing with her fellow Sannin. Naruto folded his arms over his chest and closed his eyes, assimilating what he had heard. He understood what his mother and Oji-chan were trying to say in general, and he too nodded his head absently. While he had 4 natural affinities, which was a great aspect for him as a shinobi, he hadn't trained any of his affinity to his full extent. Ever since he had discovered his ability to use Mokuton naturally, he devoted most of his time to get a good grasp of his Kekkei Genkai. "Hi, I understand Ka-chan, Jiraiya Oji-chan," Naruto said firmly. "That's good, because from now on, your training is only going to get much harder and you won't have time to complain." Tsunade replied with a sickly smile as she cracked her knuckles. Jiraiya and Naruto both paled a little on seeing the expression on Tsunade's face. It was one which assured intense pain in every bone of the body. However, Naruto also felt a little excited upon imagining the different training exercises he will go through. It's time. We should tell him now about it now." Jiraiya muttered upon getting closer to Tsunade, who was still dreaming about the wonderful training regimen she would have Naruto follow. "Huh? Oh, right." Tsunade replied. Her mood suddenly changed as she remembered that Jiraiya and her had agreed to tell Naruto about the group that would be after him. Tsunade gently called out to Naruto, who once again gave his entire attention to her. "Now, listen to what Jiraiya has to say, okay? Don't interrupt him in between. It's an important matter, which you should hear directly from us." Tsunade said warmly as she placed her hand on Naruto's shoulder gently. Naruto noticed a hint of sadness in her voice, but did not say anything. Turning towards the Toad Sannin, he now had a serious look on his face. "This group goes by the name of Akatsuki. They are a mercenary group consisting entirely of missing ninjas from different villages, and all of them are rumored to be at least S rank or higher. Until a few years ago, they performed all sorts of missions ranging from guarding to assassinating someone. But, a while ago I received word from one of contacts that they will be hunting down the Bijuas that are scattered across the elemental nations," Jiraiya explained calmly. Naruto remained silent as his mind processed what Jiraiya had told now. However, as realization dawned on him as to what Jiraiya meant, he felt a cold shiver run through his spine. "Collecting Bijuas. Wouldn't that mean they are also after the Jinchu?" Naruto mumbled softly with lowered gaze. Jiraiya placed his hand on Naruto's arms to garner his attention. Upon feeling the contact, Naruto looked up at Jiraiya with a tinge of fear evident in his blue eyes. "Yes, that is true, Naruto. You and the other Jinchuricas are not safe. But, you don't have to worry yet. It will be some time before they come after you. The reason you need to get stronger is so you can defend yourself against powerful enemies. Your mother and I will protect you when the time comes, but we won't always be close to you. You are already powerful shinobi. With more years of training and experience, I'm certain you will be among the most powerful shinobi ever. Jiraiya spoke with admiration. How can you be so sure of me, Oji-chan? Naruto asked, unsure of himself. You must believe in yourself, Naruto. So long as you believe in yourself and have hope, there is nothing that can escape the grasp of your hands. Jiraiya stated wisely with a small smile. Seeing the look on his mother's and Oji-chan's face, Naruto felt an extremely strong emotion bubbling inside of himself. At this point, Tsunade noticed how the trees and flowers in the Senju compound looked so fresh, colorful, just like the time when her grandfather was alive. In fact, the entirety of Konoha was blanketed by such a calm feeling that almost everyone could feel it unconsciously. Flashback end. Naruto. Come down for breakfast. Naruto heard his mother call from downstairs. Realizing what day today is, he smiled widely and jumped from his bed to the ground. He had been waiting for this day for a long time now. Moving closer to his windows, he opened the curtains and the entire room was immediately bathed in the warm sunlight. Seeing the lush green field from his room and hearing the birds chirping in the morning always made him smile and feel at peace. Heading to the bathroom, he quickly brushed his teeth and took a shower to fresh himself up. As he stepped outside the bathroom with only a towel wrapped around his waist, his widened dramatically upon seeing who was standing in his room. Hinata's cheeks began turning bright red as her eyes studied Naruto standing only with a towel wrapped around him. She could clearly see the results of Naruto's physical training over the years. Even at his young age, he had well-defined chest and abs in the making, which might put some of the grown men to shame. Her innocent wide eyes roamed around his upper body and muscular arms, and as her gaze lowered below slowly, her cheeks turned the brightest shade of red. Before she or Naruto could utter anything, she fainted promptly and fell on the ground with a blissful look on her face. Naruto simply stood in his place with a dumbfounded expression on his face. Though it had been only a few seconds, to him it felt like an eternity when he realized she was staring at him. Hinata-chan. Naruto yelled as his mind registered the fact that Hinata had fainted. Both Tsunade and Shizune ran upstairs on hearing Naruto's voice. Worried that something may have happened to Naruto and Hinata, both ran quickly. Soon as they reached Naruto's room, Tsunade hurriedly opened the door only to come across a situation that would remain etched in her mind for a long time. Ha-chan, Shizune-chan. She wouldn't wake up. She suddenly fainted. Is she okay? Naruto cried out with confusion written across his face. One moment he saw Hinata staring at him and the next second he knew she fainted and fell. It's a good thing Jiraiya isn't here to see this. Tsunade said, laughing at the current predicament and how oblivious her son was as to why Hinata had fainted. She playfully slapped Shizune at the back, who too amused at the situation. Shizune, take Hinata downstairs and give her some water. Tsunade asked her student eventually. She really hoped Jiraiya did not pop out of anywhere. She was certain her perverted friend would have tried to indulge her son in the idiotic stories he wrote. Meanwhile, Naruto simply sat beside his friend with a perplexed look on his face as his mother and older sister laughed as if nothing had happened. Hi, Tsunade-sama. Shizune replied heartily as she finally calmed down a little. She then proceeded to gently pick up the girl and walked out to the living room. Once Shizune was gone, Tsunade walked towards Naruto and knelt beside him. She's okay, Naruto. You shouldn't worry about her. Shizune will look after her, okay? Tsunade said in a motherly tone. Why did she faint suddenly, Ka-chan? Is she sick? Naruto asked yet again, uncertain about what was going on. No. She's fine. I told you not worry about it, Naru. Now, get ready and come down, okay? Tsunade stated getting up. Naruto dumbly nodded, not really understanding what happened in the past few minutes. Just as Naruto turned around to get his clothes, he felt his mother hug him amiably from behind. Happy birthday, Naru-chan. She whispered tenderly. Her eyes moistened a little upon remembering the little baby she had held for the first time, 11 years ago. Chapter 15 Graduation Exam. 2 years later, Konohagakure no Sado. Laying down on the bed with his narrowed eyes glued to the ceiling, the ghastly images of his parents lying dead in their bedroom could not drift away from his young mind. Nor could the words that his older brother had said to him on that night. Despite all the hatred that he felt, there was a hint of sadness in those black eyes. The early morning sun rays that logged through the closed curtains of the room formed a fiery shadow upon the walls. As the minutes gradually ticked on, he breathed out calmly and finally got up from the bed in one motion. Today was the day he would take a step closer towards his destined fate. The past 2 years had been exceedingly productive for him and he was relatively satisfied with how much his strength had augmented. But, even with the strength he now possessed, it was nowhere near his older brother's or his for that matter. It irked him how those two always walked in front of him. Frankly, he did not know what to feel about his blonde friend anymore. He was aware that to fulfill his goal, he will need to enter the darkness, but so long as he had ties with Naruto, it wouldn't be so easy. After all, Naruto was still the closest friend he had. He hated having such mixed emotions. It made him feel weak. Walking closer to the windows, he pulled the curtains apart and the awaiting sunlight immediately bathed the room in its warm glow. "It's almost time now," whispered Sasuke, looking over the area beside his house where he had trained himself every day. Glancing towards the clock again, he quickly disappeared into the restroom to freshen up. It wouldn't do him any good to be unnecessarily late for the graduation exam. Shortly after that and upon having some breakfast downstairs, Sasuke left the house and began his walk towards the Konoha Ninja Academy. As he walked through the empty streets of the Uchiha compound, he reminisced about his younger days. The street used to be filled with civilians and shinobi busy with their work, children running around and playing. Passing by a grocery store, he remembered the old lady who always treated him kindly. But all of that had changed in one night. Slightly irritated that those memories were resurfacing again, he took to the rooftops and began jumping on top of them to reach his destination faster. There was no point in reminiscing about the past. It held no meaning for him. He had chosen his path years ago, and there was nothing that could make him sway. 15 minutes later, Konoha Academy. The clock showed about 20 minutes until 7:30 in the morning, and the classroom was already buzzing with soon-to-be genin. The day for the academy graduation exam had finally come. While most of the students who belonged to the major clans of Konoha were relatively relaxed, the others were slightly more nervous or skeptical on the prospect of becoming a shinobi. Death was an integral part of the shinobi world, and one could never say when they might perish in the line of duty. To their young mind, it was a terrifying prospect, of course. Naruto was quietly sitting beside Hinata in the last row of the middle benches, with his eyes closed and arms folded over his chest. Over the course of the past 2 years, the blonde had matured greatly, both in shinobi skills and intellect. Despite having his childish tendencies, he had become calmer. Ever since his godfather had introduced him to senjutsu, he felt more at peace with himself and the surrounding. It had been almost a year since he began learning the sage arts or senjutsu, and over that time, he had assimilated the concept of nature chakra rather well, according to his two sensei Jiraiya and Fukasaku-sama. Even apart from senjutsu, Naruto had gone through rigorous training under his mother, as well as Jiraiya in ninjutsu, taijutsu and jinjutsu. And his control over Mokuton had only increased ever since he became one with nature. It had astounded even Naruto with the things he could achieve when he was in sage mode. He hadn't mastered his ability to utilize senjutsu to its full extent, but he had learned to balance the nature chakra with his own spiritual and physical energy. About 5 minutes later, when Sasuke entered the class, Naruto's blue eyes momentarily glanced at Sasuke and was met with the black ones of his friend. But soon enough, the blonde closed his eyes, again. The feeling of sheer darkness and hatred Naruto often felt from his friend unnerved him at times. He didn't know what transpired between Sasuke and Itachi or what the younger Uchiha saw that night, but it had changed Sasuke dramatically. He didn't really show it, but he still considered Sasuke his friend. The two hadn't talked much lately, but they had an unspoken understanding between them. At least, that's what he believed. Hinata noticed the subtle interaction between the two and sighed. It had been like this for the past 2 years. Whenever she tried talking to Naruto about Sasuke, he always avoided her questions by changing the subject. However, she never pushed him hard, knowing it was a delicate matter for him. She was just glad that over the years her friendship with the blonde had only grown. Most of the class was jerked off their thoughts when they heard Sakura's and several other girls' childish scream when their eyes landed on the raven-haired Uchiha. But as usual, no one ever said a word. It was rather bothersome for majority of them to listen to Sakura's rant when one said something against her beloved Sasuke. Soon as the clock showed 7:30, Haruka Yumino and Mizuki promptly entered the classroom with stacks of paper in their hand. Upon keeping those papers on the table, Haruka turned towards the class with a smile on his face, while Mizuki stood behind the table. Haruka looked over his class again, a little sad that today would be the last time that he'll be seeing them all together. It was his batch of students and he couldn't have asked for a better one. Haruka was certain everyone was going to pass the exam despite having trouble teaching some of them. He was surprised to see even Shikamaru awake. Perhaps there was hope for the lazy one too. Nonetheless, he was extremely proud of the way everyone had grown in the past 4 years. "I hope everyone is prepared for the graduation exam?" Haruka asked. Upon seeing everyone nod, he too moved next to the teacher's table. He then proceeded to call everyone's name from his book to make sure that all the students were in fact present. Once he was done, he looked up at the class again. "Now, Mizuki-sensei will be distributing the question papers and each one of you has exactly an hour to finish the exam. After that, we'll proceed with the weapons exam, Taijutsu exam and ninjutsu exam. Once everything is over, the results will be announced in the class. Those who'll pass will become a genin of Konohagakure no Seido. Iruka announced loudly, for everyone to hear his words properly. He waited a few seconds and seeing how there were no questions directed to him, he nodded to Mizuki who began distributing the question papers accordingly. Shortly, as he passed by Naruto's seat, he gave a hateful glare to the blonde which wasn't missed by the young Senju. Shrugging off his sensei's actions, Naruto simply took the paper from him and began going through the questions. It was no secret to anyone in the academy that Mizuki hated Naruto for being the Jinchuriki of the two Bijuu who killed his brother 12 years ago. However, he knew he couldn't afford to take any action against the boy as of now. With two of the Sannin within the village, it was certainly a risky maneuver. After about 10 minutes or so, all the students had begun writing, while Iruka and Mizuki kept an eye on everyone. It was of no surprise to the scar-faced chunin when he noticed Naruto, Sasuke, Hinata and Shikamaru had already the test halfway through the allowed time. Iruka eyed the Nara heir a little suspiciously, always having the feeling that Shikamaru was much smarter than he showed himself to be. He sighed wondering if Shikamaru would ever grow out of his laziness. Soon enough, the 1 hour allotted for the written had come to an end and Iruka looked at all the students firmly and said, "You may all now stop writing. The time is up. Remain seated in your desks while Mizuki-sensei will collect the papers. Your answers will then be evaluated by other academy teachers while you all will be partaking in next parts of the graduation exam." Once the papers were collected by Mizuki, the students along with Iruka began moving to the training grounds of the academy for the weapons and Taijutsu exam. Training ground behind the academy. Everyone, here are 10 kunai and shuriken each on the table that you must throw at the target and hit the mark. Each kunai or shuriken aimed correctly at the mark will earn you 1 point. Iruka explained briefly and began calling out the student's name from his list. Most of the students had managed to score at least 14 points out of the 20, while a few had scored between 8 and 12. Setting his eyes on the last 2 students, Iruka smiled widely. Out of all his students, Naruto and Sasuke were the most advanced in the shinobi arts. Even some of the other teachers at the academy were slightly envious that the heir of the Senju and Uchiha clan were in Iruka's class. "Sasuke Uchiha," Iruka called out. Suddenly a lot of the girls started to yell encouraging words for Sasuke, while some among them even proclaimed their love for the young raven-haired boy. Sasuke simply ignored the shouts and moved towards the table to pick up the kunes and shurikens. Then moving on to the spot from he had to throw from, Sasuke exhaled and let his body relax. Glancing at the target for a second, he flicked his wrist and released the 10 kunai simultaneously, which ended up hitting the mark. He then proceeded to do the same with the shurikens which yielded him the same result. "A job as usual, Sasuke." Iruka congratulated and he noticed that Sasuke had already walked to the back of the group. It had pained him a little to see how drastically Sasuke had changed ever since the demise of the Uchiha clan. But, he also knew there was only person in the class Sasuke listened to even if remotely as his eyes then fell on Naruto. "Naruto, you're up now." Iruka called out. Wanting to get done with this part of the exams quickly, Naruto picked up the kunes from the table and skillfully threw them towards marks specified on the target. And with the shurikens too, Naruto managed to hit each of the mark on the target with accurate precision. Looking towards his sensei once, Naruto walked back to the group and was instantly congratulated by Kiba, Shino, Hinata and Shikamaru. Sasuke did not even glance at the blonde Senju and quietly stood at the back. As Iruka noted down all the scores once again, he walked to the center of the field and asked everyone to gather before him for the Taijutsu part of the exam. "Now, I will be calling out 2 students' name each turn. You are to combat the other using only Taijutsu. Unlike the Taijutsu sessions you have had in the past, in today's test your goal is to either knock out your opponent or make them yield. However, there is a time limit of 10 minutes for each spar. Now remember that it does not matter if you lose the match. You will be scored on how well your Taijutsu has improved since the beginning of the academy," Iruka stated clearly. "Ah, we are definitely going to mop the floor with anyone we're matched with," Kiba declared dauntingly, puffing his chest slightly. His ninkin, Akamaru barked in an approving manner further uplifting Kiba's confidence. "Shut up Kiba. Don't try to act cool in front of everyone," Sakura yelled indignantly, thinking that the young Inuzuka was trying to put Sasuke down. Her claim was supported by more girls who had similar feelings about the uncaring Uchiha. Kiba looked at the pink-haired girl accusingly for a few seconds but backed down when he felt someone's hand on his shoulder. Looking back, he was mildly surprised to see it was Shino who had stopped him. It would be illogical to get into petty fights during the graduation exams. "You must keep your calm," Shino stated in his usual monotone voice. Although a tad bit irritated that he couldn't give a piece of his mind to Sakura, he knew his friend was right. Upon noticing that most of the class was now staring at him, he rubbed the back of his head sheepishly. Oops. Whispered Kiba, rather awkwardly. Naruto chuckled on witnessing the whole event. He just wished if the shinobi life would be as easygoing as it was now, but again, it was just wishful thinking. A small frown appeared on Iruka's face on noticing that most had yet again begun talking among themselves. Everyone quiet down. It's not the time to be discussing such irrelevant matters. You all are soon going to be genin. You shouldn't take the ninja life so lightly. I'm not going to sugarcoat things for you. The life of a shinobi is an extremely hard one, where you constantly must make decisions and take actions for the welfare of the village. We shinobi are the ones who must do the hard tasks, so the innocents may live peacefully. You may not understand the meaning behind those words yet, but someday you will. I just hope you are mentally well prepared to bear the burden. Iruka stated loudly, using chakra to amplify his voice. All the students were slightly taken aback by their sensei's sudden change in demeanor, but none said another word. However, Iruka knew out of all the students Naruto, Sasuke and Shikamaru were probably the only ones who understood the implied meaning of his words. A couple of minutes later, the scar-faced chunin started calling out the student's name to come forward and proceeded to begin the third part of the graduation exam. The first few spars were between the civilian students and it proved to be quite an eyesore. Frankly, the taijutsu displayed was standard enough for academy students, but it was the lack of proper basics katas that made the spars seem less than mediocre. It was a common belief among the civilian families that if their kids managed to become shinobi their lifestyle would enhance. But they completely disregard the dangers that entail with becoming a shinobi. Yet, Iruka had hoped that they too would nurture into fine and loyal shinobi of the leaf. It was after all, a teacher's task to believe in their student, no matter the situation. While it could be said that some of the students performed on an average level merely because of their civilian backgrounds, it wasn't necessarily the truth. The match between Sakura and Ino was a comical sight for everyone. Rather than a taijutsu spar between prospective genin, it looked more like two girls fighting over their romantic interests and finally falling on the ground due to exhaustion. Even Iruka for that matter was speechless. He would certainly need to have a talk with the Hokage regarding a few of the students in his class. It wouldn't bode well for the village or a shinobi if they did not have even the adequate skills to step into the field. As the time proceeded, all the students were done with their evaluation and the only ones left were Naruto and Sasuke. Upon being called to fight, both stepped forward and began walking to the center of the field. "Good luck, Naruto-kun," Hinata said softly. Naruto stopped momentarily to look back and gave her a wide smile, which made the Hyuga era slightly blush. Even after all these years, she still couldn't help but blush at his vibrant smile. It was as warm and bright as the sun. "Thanks, Hinata-chan. But don't worry about me. I will be fine." Naruto reassured his friend, giving her a thumbs up and then walked towards Iruka. He knew she had a habit of getting overly worried at times, but these were the small things that he really liked about her. Sakura, who had watched a brief conversation between Naruto and Hinata, felt a little envious of the relationship between those two. Glancing at Sasuke's back, she wondered if she'd ever have that with Sasuke. Lowering her head, she remained quiet as she saw Naruto and Sasuke stand opposite to each other. Despite her dislike of Naruto, she did not outright hate him. Yes, she had called him a horrible thing a few years ago in the past, but that was only because she did not know any better. Normally, a child would believe any word that came from their parents. But she did hold a bit of grudge against Naruto for the severe interrogation her parents and she had to go through during that time. She had never been more scared than that day. Although, her behavior soon reverted to a love-struck girl who began yelling words of encouragement for Sasuke. A few of the students even had to cover their ears because of how loud she was. "Naruto, Sasuke, are you both ready?" Iruka asked expectantly. Upon seeing both nod their heads, he called a start to the match and jumped back. An eerie silence reigned over the training ground as everyone had their focus on them and the excitement was clearly visible in their eyes. As a little more than 10 seconds passed, Naruto took his time to sense his opponent. He smirked slightly on realizing how much stronger Sasuke had become, all by himself. He doubted if he could do it all alone. Given the somewhat strained relationship between the two, Sasuke and Naruto rarely ever met each other outside of the academy. "Well, show me, Sasuke. Show me how much stronger you have become," Naruto stated with a small smile. It had been quite some time since he fought with his friend. Out of all his academy friends, fighting with Sasuke always made him feel more alive and it was only with him that he could fight giving his all. He wasn't arrogant, just confident in his power. And he was sure, to some extent Sasuke felt the same. "I don't have anything to prove to you, Naruto," Sasuke replied, his face portraying a calm look. As his fully matured Sharingan came into view, he arched forward and rushed towards Naruto at high speed. Upon briefly seeing the Sharingan, Naruto too ran towards Sasuke, matching his speed equally. Soon enough, the two clashed with their posterior forearms pushing against each other. A sudden gust of wind blew around the two as they exerted more force, trying to overpower the other. Slight cracks began to develop on the ground below them as a testament to their power. But, after a few seconds, Sasuke loosened his arm and allowed himself to fall backwards, catching the blonde off guard. Taking advantage of Naruto's momentary lack of focus, he immediately ducked and went for a punch to the stomach. Quickly regaining himself, Naruto swatted away his arm and kneed him just below the ribcage. However, soon as Naruto seemed to make a contact with Sasuke, there was a puff of smoke, revealing Naruto's knee, breaking a log of wood into several pieces. Glancing up, Naruto saw the Uchiha descending towards him, a kunai in his hand. Taking out his own kunai, the two once again clashed against each other for supremacy, and the sound of two kunai striking against each other reverberated through the entire field. This time, instead of applying more force, Sasuke propelled himself off Naruto and backflipped. Soon as he landed on the ground, he took out 4 more kunais and threw all of them towards Naruto. As Naruto began to deflect all the kunais thrown at him, he saw Sasuke rapidly approach him from the corner of his left eye and realized that the kunais were just a distraction. He's incredibly fast, Naruto thought. Waiting for Sasuke to come closer, Naruto swiftly ducked and went for a leg sweep, which the Uchiha avoided by jumping above him. Soon as Naruto got up, he turned around to block a punch from Sasuke, who was now standing alarmingly close to him. Retreating his arm, Naruto covered his left fist in chakra and aimed it towards Sasuke's celiac plexus. Already having anticipated the attack with his Sharingan, Sasuke proceeded to duck down. But he soon realized his mistake when he noticed a small smirk on Naruto's face. Not having enough time to dodge the next strike, Sasuke was hit roughly on his right shoulder. The strength behind that kick easily made him lose his footing and he was thrown several feet back. Naruto smirked, having finally landed a proper hit on Sasuke. However, his smile soon faded when he noticed a relatively unhurt Sasuke walk towards him. The two then proceeded to engage in a relentless taijutsu battle. None of them could gain an advantage over the other or land a decisive hit. Each strike was narrowly avoided by both, which showcased their impressive reflexes. To any bystanding shinobi, it would appear as if it was fight between seasoned shinobi. It had been a little over 5 minutes now, and everyone who was watching the two of them spar had their eyes wide with anticipation. Several of the other academy teachers too had stepped outside their classroom to watch the fight from the first floor. Watching young shinobi with such raw power made them shudder a little upon wondering how strong the two would turn out to be in their prime age. "Wow. Look at those two go at each other," Ino stated, amazed. She never understood how those two were so much stronger than everyone else. It honestly baffled her at times. Unknown to her, similar thoughts were going through the mind of several other students who simply kept their eyes on the fight. "Makes me kind of glad that I wasn't up against any of them," Kiba said with a sigh of relief. It wasn't that he was terrible. Like any clan heir, he too was trained from a young age in his own clan's taijutsu style, but the two in front of him were years ahead of him in skills. There were times he seethed with anger on always being bested by the two. But every time he saw them fight, he realized that neither Sasuke nor Naruto used their entire strength when fighting someone other than each other. He was just glad that Naruto did not act like the way Sasuke did. He frankly could not stand the sight of that arrogant Uchiha. "I need to finish this quickly. We aren't getting anywhere with taijutsu. And I'm not allowed to use ninjutsu. That leaves me with only one option," Naruto thought calculatedly. Swatting away a right hook, Naruto swiftly jumped over Sasuke and faster than any normal eye could see, he flipped back to kick the Uchiha right on his cheekbone. Blocking the punch with his arm, Sasuke caught Naruto's foot with his other hand and threw him onto the ground with a resounding thud. He wasn't disappointed when he noticed there was a log of wood in Naruto's place. Looking in front of him, he noticed Naruto slowly walking towards him with a single-handed ram seal. However, before he could make a move, black kanji erupted from his right arm and spread all over his body in a span of couple of seconds. His Sharingan quickly spotted the seal that was placed on his arm as he sent a glare towards the blonde. He had never taken much interest in Fuinjutsu, but he did have a wee bit of knowledge in the art. He tried breaking the seal by unleashing more of his chakra, but his body simply became stiffer and he fell on the ground. Despite not knowing the reason behind Sasuke's current predicament, it was an amusing sight for Kiba, Shikamaru, Choji and Hinata. Ino, Sakura and several other girls shouted profanities at the young Senju for trapping their beloved Sasuke. "What did you do to me?" Sasuke asked accusingly. Not being able to move any part of his body was certainly an unwelcoming sight for him. And from what he now understood, it was unwise for him to use his chakra too. "I put a paralysis seal on you during our taijutsu spar. It's a little different than a normal one. The more chakra you use, the stiffer your body becomes, as you can already feel," Naruto replied with a smirk. But, he knew, if it was an actual fight with his friend, it would have been much more drawn out and close. Haruka and the other academy teachers were wide-eyed at the scene before them. Never had they seen an academy student use Fuinjutsu so flawlessly. I suppose the spar has ended with that last maneuver. Iruka called out as he appeared between the two in a shunshin. Naruto then proceeded to remove the seal from Sasuke once Iruka had noted down the scores for Naruto and Sasuke in his list. I was sure I could beat you in a one-on-one Taijutsu battle. But you were much stronger than I anticipated. That was a great fight, Sasuke. Naruto said with a cheery attitude as Sasuke got up from the ground. Dusting himself off a little, he turned his attention to Naruto. We both know we didn't fight each other seriously. But when we do, the results will be much different. Sasuke whispered so that only Naruto could hear him. With that said, he turned around and walked to the back of the group without saying another word to anyone else. There was no anger or resentment in his voice. To Naruto, it sounded more like a plain fact. He smiled, silently accepting the challenge. Then, he too walked back to stand beside Hinata. Iruka then asked the students to go back to the class and wait for their names to be called for the ninjutsu part of the graduation exam. Once all the students were seated in the classroom, Mizuki called out each one's name alphabetically and the student was then taken to another room for the final test. It was the Sandaime Hokage, Iruka and the academy principal who were to judge the ninjutsu skill of the students. Hiruzen had made it customary for himself to be present during the graduation exam of every student. As a Hokage, it wouldn't do him well if he didn't see what these young kids could do, himself. In the ninjutsu part of the exam, a student had to show mastery over the 3 basic jutsus Bunshin no Jutsu, Kawarimi no Jutsu, and Henge no Jutsu. Due to the peaceful times that were ensued since the end of the Third Shinobi War, the requirements for graduation had only decreased. It wasn't until 2 hours later that all the students had completed the exams and Iruka was mildly taken aback by the fact that all his students had passed. But, more than that, he was extremely delighted to see all of them become genin and become an official ninja of the leaf. Well, how do you think the teams are going to grouped? Choji asked randomly, opening another pack of barbecue-flavored chips. It was his favorite flavor after all. Sakura and Ino, who also heard Choji's words, gave him a quizzical look. Before anyone else could reply, Sakura stood up and proudly claimed, "Of course I'm going to be teamed up with Sasuke-kun." On hearing that, several girls began arguing among themselves that they wanted to be paired with the Uchiha. Naruto was even surprised to hear some of the girls wanting to be in the same team with him. He briefly wondered what his mother or Jiraiya Oji-chan would do when they learned about the number of girls who were after him. No. They can never find out about this. Naruto thought dreadfully. His godfather would certainly have that perverted smile on his face, while his mother would lecture him about keeping his innocence. For some reason, he found it odd that his mother never really said anything about Hinata spending so much time with him. Humming out of his thoughts, he couldn't help but laugh lightly at the devotion he saw in Sakura's eyes for Sasuke at times. Despite not having a very friendly relationship with the pink-haired girl, he knew she didn't have any deep-rooted hatred for him. Although, he had to sympathize with Sasuke too. Fangirls were quite annoying and stupid at times, not that he would ever mention it out loud. I suppose they would team us up based on our abilities in Taijutsu, Ninjutsu, Jinjutsu and our physical prowess. I was told by my father that teams are often divided into attack, defense and tracking units. Shino stated calmly. Like most members of the Aburam clan, he only spoke what was necessary. Not a word more or less. I just hope I'm teamed with an overall good team. I could not do much in the Taijutsu exam, but the written and ninjutsu part went fairly well for me. Kiba also said with his head hung a little low. He had hoped to show everyone how much he had improved, but having faced off against Hinata did not do him much good. It was a known fact that among the clans who specialized in Taijutsu, that a hand-to-hand combat with a member from Hyuga clan is never a wise choice. Naruto, who was sitting beside the Ninken user, placed a comforting hand on Kiba's shoulder. "You're worrying too much. My Ka-san says our progress throughout our time in the academy is taken under consideration for making the team. While it is important to pass the graduation exam, that alone is not crucial." Naruto replied with a warm smile. Kiba calmed a little having heard that from Naruto. Akamaru too barked, as if agreeing with the young blonde Senju. "Well, whatever the case, I think we should all go out for dinner somewhere tonight. All these exams have made me hungrier." Choji exclaimed, throwing away the empty packet of chips. Kiba, Ino and Sakura readily agreed to that, and Choji had already begun dreaming of the delicious meat he would get to eat in the evening. "What do you say, Hinata-chan? Do you think your father will allow?" Naruto asked with a hopeful look on his face. "I think so. I will ask Kasama. Will talk to father." Hinata replied, a bit hesitantly. Ever since the kidnapping attempt on her earlier, her father never let her go outside without 2 or 3 guards around her. And it would be awkward for her guards were to join her friends for dinner. Naruto understood what she meant by that and became quiet soon after. He looked around the class and saw that everyone was happily chatting with someone or other. "They're here." Naruto whispered, low enough for only Hinata to hear. And shortly, the door to the classroom opened and in walked Iruka followed by 6 more shinobis who Naruto believed were their Jounin sensei. Immediately everyone in the room became quiet as their eyes landed on the new faces in front of them. Once again, I'd like to congratulate everyone on graduating from the academy. You lot were my first batch of students and I'm glad to have taught you well. I hope each one you will go on to make our village proud. Now, as you all know, all of you will be divided into team of 3 members, with each team having a Jounin sensei to help you grow further. Now, I will be announcing the team members and their Jounin sensei in order. Iruka explained and began calling out the team name, the members in it and their Jounin sensei. Seeing as how it would take at least 10 to 15 minutes, Naruto adjusted himself in his seat comfortably and closed his eyes. As a few more minutes passed, Hinata became a little restless as she saw how some people were dissatisfied with the team arrangement. Deep in her heart, she knew that she wanted to be in the same team as Naruto. Despite having become really close to him, she could never bring up enough courage to confess her feelings to him. She giggled upon realizing even if she did tell him, he wouldn't comprehend her clearly. Growing up with him she found it funny how Naruto could be so intellectual in the shinobi arts, but when it came to love, he could be utterly confused. Naruto-kun. Do you think we'll be in the same team? I mean, you're close to the Sandame, right? Hinata asked quietly, making Naruto open his eyes curiously. Huh. I didn't expect you to be worried about something like that, Hinata-chan. Well, it would certainly be great if we are. Naruto started, oblivious to her feelings, but was soon cut off when he heard his name being called. Naruto Senju, Sakura Haruno and Sasuke Uchiha will make Team 7. Your Jounin sensei will be Kakashi Haddock. Iruka called out. Looking to his left, he sighed realizing that Kakashi was once again late. Chapter 16 Outset of the Shinobi Life. Over 2 hours had passed since the teams were announced, and the newly formed Team 7 was still waiting for their sensei to arrive. Naruto, Sasuke and Sakura were all seated on the same bench on the far left side of the class, near the windows. While Sasuke quietly sat with a relatively calm look on his face, even he was beginning to get a little irritated with the tardiness of their appointed Jounin sensei. However, it was Sakura's constant attempt to talk to him that was thinning his patience further. He glanced to his right to see that Naruto still had his eyes closed and had not uttered a single word since the room became empty. Only a loser like him can fall asleep at a time like this. Thought Sasuke inwardly, a little amused by Naruto's antics. It was always just like him to have a light mind. Yet, Sasuke knew better. When is he going to come? Whined Sakura for the umpteenth time. We have been waiting here for hours. Every other team sensei came and took off with their teams. Is our sensei even a Jounin for real? Sasuke was about to tell the girl to shut up when Naruto voiced his thoughts. Our sensei is one of the strongest Jounins of Konohagakure, Sakura. He's known throughout the shinobi world as the man who copied over 1,000 jutsus and goes by the moniker of Sharingan no Kakashi. Both Sakura and Sasuke were shocked on hearing that title, more so Sasuke. He had his eyes slightly wide in disbelief on learning that their sensei had the Sharingan. What do you mean, Naruto? Our sensei is an Uchiha. But, I thought everyone other than Sasuke-kun was. Sakura said but stopped midway. No, he's not an Uchiha. From what I know, he got the Sharingan from one of his teammates at the end of the Third Shinobi War. He has one Sharingan, which he keeps hidden under his forehead protector. Naruto clarified. Sasuke grew more interested on hearing that news. He became a little excited on the prospect of testing his own eyes against Kakashi's. He was also curious about how well a non-Uchiha could utilize the full extent of the Sharingan's abilities. How do you know all of this, Naruto? We haven't even met our sensei till now. Even if he's as strong as you say, don't you think he should be more punctual? Sakura questioned in confusion. Opening his eyes, Naruto turned towards the pink-haired girl and momentarily stared at her and shook his head. He assumed Sakura would have figured it out by now, given how smart she tends to be at times. Jiraiya-sensei told me. Kakashi Haddock was a student of the Yondaime Hokage who was taught by Jiraiya Oji-chan. Told Naruto casually. The other two were further surprised on hearing that. Sakura was in shock on learning that she would be taught by someone so accomplished. However, most of her mind was still hung up on the fact about how much time she would get to spend with her Sasuke. Wow, that sounds so cool. Exclaimed Sakura. It was at this point that the doors to the classroom opened and in walked a tall shinobi with spiky silver hair oriented to his left side and a face mask which covered a good portion of his face. However, it was the typically relaxed and heavy-lidded expression on his face that caught the attention of Sakura and Sasuke. Having met the shinobi earlier on many occasions, Naruto was used to the bored expression planted on Kakashi's face. Even so, it still amused him greatly that the man could appear to be so bored. It suddenly made him wonder that Kakashi could give Shikamaru a run for his money when it came to being bored. What took you so long to come, sensei? Sakura yelled immediately, forgetting all sense of awe she was feeling a moment ago. Ah, you see, I met an old lady on the way here and lost track of time while helping her with groceries. Kakashi replied nonchalantly. Sakura became quiet on hearing the reason and nodded in approval of her sensei's actions. Hikachi-an always told her to be respectful towards the elders. Naruto had to control himself from outright laughing as he could sense Kakashi's bluff while Sasuke merely shook his head at the girl's stupidity. Anyway, I think we should reconvene at the roof and start off with team introduction from there on. Kakashi stated and disappeared in a cloud of smoke. Sakura was surprised to see that their sensei simply disappeared like that, but she was further surprised when even Sasuke simply faded out of view. Wow, Sasuke-kun is so cool. She thought to herself. The next second, Naruto and Sakura got up from the bench and took the more traditional route and made their way to the roof via the stairs. Even though Naruto could use the Shunshin no Jutsu, he did not feel the need to use it at this moment. Unlike Sasuke, he considered himself to be more patient. It was ironic considering how Sasuke considered himself to be the more patient one. A few minutes later, once Naruto and Sakura had reached the roof, Kakashi was leaning on the railings whilst reading a small book and Sasuke sat on the stairs with his elbows on his knee. Sakura promptly rushed and took her place to Sasuke's left and Naruto sat a further away to his right. Alright, since everyone is here, let us start with the team introduction. I want each one of you to introduce yourself. Kakashi said, not taking his eyes off the book he was reading. Sensei, what should we say? Sakura asked, a little shyly. Well, why not I start off first and then one of you can follow my lead. Kakashi said with an eye smile and shut his book to look at his students. My name is Kakashi Haddock. I have a lot of hobbies and do have a dream sort of. And I am a Jounin of Konoha. All three of the genin gained stupid looks on their face on hearing that introduction. He didn't really say anything about himself. Thought both Naruto and Sakura. Why don't you start, Naruto? Kakashi asked. My name is Naruto Senju and my dream is to surpass all the previous Hokage of Konohagakure no Sado. I like to train in the shinobi arts and my favorite part is ninjutsu. I also love studying Fuinjutsu and my favorite hobby is gardening and I love eating ramen. Exclaimed Naruto with enthusiasm. Kakashi then pointed toward Sakura, whose face began to blush slightly. My name is Sakura Haruno. She glanced toward Sasuke. I mean who I like is. She squealed a little as she turned away from the Uchiha. My dream is to. Yet again she glanced at Sasuke and squealed with a blush creeping up her face. I suppose it's your turn now, Sasuke. Kakashi said with a sigh, not noticed by others. I'm Sasuke Uchiha. What I have is not a dream, but an ambition and something which I'll make sure will become a reality in the future. I want to kill a certain man and restore the power the Uchiha clan once held in the village. Stated Sasuke with a serious face. Both Kakashi and Naruto narrowed their eyes slightly on hearing that. Sasuke and he rarely spoke to each these past few years and despite knowing how he felt about his brother, he could never really comprehend Sasuke's pain completely since he never lost anyone close to him. While he too had felt extremely saddened by the Uchiha clan's the fact that Sasuke was so mysterious and his different personality than the other boys always appealed to her. He was a mystery that she wanted to solve with all her heart. His hatred towards Itachi has only grown, as the reports say. I will have to keep a special eye on him to make sure he doesn't do anything to put himself on a wrong path. Kakashi thought with caution. Well, that's all good to hear. Now that we are done with the introduction, let's get to the good part, shall we? Kakashi said as he kept his book in his back pouch. Are we going to go on a mission, sensei? Sakura asked cheerfully. She really couldn't wait to go on missions with her team and show Sasuke how good her shinobi skills were. Missions? Nah. You guys need to pass a test first to be approved as a team ready for missions. Kakashi revealed. This time all the three genins gained surprised looks on their faces. What test, sensei? Didn't we already pass the graduation test and become genin? Asked Naruto perplexedly. Sasuke and Sakura too had similar thoughts running through their mind. Well, that is true. But that test is just to see if you guys have the necessary knowledge and basic skills to become a shinobi. Every team will have this test which I am going to conduct. It's to see if you guys can function as shinobi in the real world. The Shinobi Academy doesn't give a student much exposure to the world outside of the village. That is the Jounin sensei's task to check. Kakashi explained. What happens if we fail the test, sensei? Sakura asked, a little fearful. While she was good with books in Jinjutsu, she got average marks in Taijutsu and Shuriken Jutsu back in the academy. Well, if a team fails the test, they will be sent back to the academy. This test conducted by the Jounin sensei is mainly to weed out the weak students. Only 9 students can pass this test in general. Kakashi stated. He was surprised by the lack of reaction from Naruto and Sasuke. He assumed they either knew the general idea behind the test or were confident in their own abilities. Not like individual abilities is going to help them in this test anyway, thought the masked ninja. Sakura became a little tensed on hearing her sensei's words. She really wished to be a shinobi, mainly because she wanted to spend more time with Sasuke and show her love how good she was. But on hearing the seriousness behind Kakashi's words, it troubled her mind if she was in fact up to the challenge. Don't worry Sakura. It's going to be fine. She heard Naruto's words. Looking at his kind smile, she eased up a little, but still worried about her abilities as a ninja. Let's meet at training ground 7 in 15 minutes and we'll see if you guys can work as a team. I will explain the details of the test over there. Kakashi said and once again disappeared in a cloud of smoke. Once Kakashi had gone, Sasuke simply got up from his spot and used Shunshin to make his way towards the training ground. He had absolute faith in his abilities as a ninja. He had chosen his path in life and there would be nothing that could stop him from getting his revenge. Becoming a shinobi for Konoha was merely a stepping stone for him. Naruto sighed as he sensed Sasuke's turbulent feelings. He couldn't blame him, but even after all this, while he wished Sasuke opened to him more regarding his feelings, he still viewed the Uchiha as his brother. Well, let's go Sakura. We wouldn't want to be late for the test, yeah? Naruto asked rhetorically. Sakura was a bit slumped too on seeing Sasuke's behavior. She always tried her hardest to make herself look good in front of Sasuke, but he never took notice of her, and that really hurt her. She thought once she became a shinobi, maybe then he'd notice her, but now even that was looking like a slim reality. Don't give up hope so easily, Sakura. He's a hard person to understand. Just give him some time. Naruto said to her with a vibrant smile as they made their way out of the academy. Sakura merely nodded but kept quiet rest of the way to the training ground. She did not really know what to say to the blonde. Given how she had once treated him, she was still a little embarrassed about it. Yet, she did not really understand that whole ordeal. She had only reacted how her parents had asked her to. But over the years as she had seen him, he was nothing like how her parents had described him to be. It's true at one point she had outright detested Naruto for how her parents treated by those mask-wearing shinobi years ago. But her parents had explained to her that it was primarily their fault. She was just glad that Naruto never lashed out at her for being mean. Maybe, things would improve once she got to know him a little better. Training ground 7. After 9 or 10 minutes of walk, Naruto and Sakura had finally reached training ground 7. Like the other training grounds in the village, this one had a vast clearing that was surrounded by trees on 3 of the sides, while there was a small pond on the northwest corner of the ground. Ah, you guys made it here finally. Kakashi greeted as he walked towards them. Naruto looked around for Sasuke and found him leisurely sitting under the shade of the tree. Looking up he realized it was quite sunny today. Soon enough, Sasuke also joined them and the 3 genins were now quietly standing before Kakashi, waiting for further instruction. Okay, your test is 2. Kakashi started as he took out 2 bells from his pouch. Take these bells from me. Whoever gets a bell, passes the test and can become a genin, thereby allowed to go on missions for the village. He stated calmly. As expected, it was Sakura who voiced her concerns regarding the test before anyone else. But sensei, there are only 2 bells. How can all 3 of us pass if only 2 of us can get a bell each? Sakura stated in confusion. She was beginning to get a bad feeling about this test for some reason. While Sasuke had no qualms with the rules, Naruto momentarily thought about the overall aspect of this test. If only 2 of them were supposed to pass, that would make Team 7 a 3-man squad. And he had never heard of a newly graduated team which only had 2 genins and 1 jounin sensei. He cursed Jiraiya for talking to him in riddles when he had asked the Sannin regarding the graduation exam and what comes after it. A shinobi is one who carves out his own path by analyzing the situation thoroughly and with the help of others around him. That was what Jiraiya had quoted to him a few weeks prior to the graduation exam. It irked him to not know what exactly his perverted sensei was talking about at that point. He turned to Sasuke to ask him something but was surprised with the slight smirk the Uchiha had on his face. Well, you catch on quick, Sakura. You see, the village doesn't want weak shinobi to represent itself against other villages. When out in the field, you'll have to think analytically and every belief you have will be tested in numerous ways. You must be prepared mentally as well as physically to be working as a shinobi for Konoha. Although, there has been relative peace among the Great 5 nations, you can never be too certain as to when the next war may break. In the shinobi world, the line between peace and war is an extremely fickle one. So, this test is mainly to weed out those who aren't capable to handle the pressure out in the field. The 3 were surprised to hear the hardness in Kakashi's voice. They realized the person before them wasn't speaking as a jounin sensei, but as an experienced shinobi of the village. The very next second, his face relaxed a lot more as he said, now, go on. It's almost 10 right now. And you have until noon to get the bells from me. Also, a word of warning. If you really want to get the bells, come at me with the intention to kill. Naruto and Sasuke promptly scattered and went towards the tree to come up with an effective plan to acquire the bells. Sakura remained rooted to her place as her sensei's words had hit her quite harshly. She was about to follow Sasuke to ask him for help, but she couldn't will herself to do it for some reason. She saw Kakashi eyeing her expectantly, and then she too ran towards the trees. They don't seem to have figured it out already. It'll be sad if I'll have to fail a team with such untapped potential. Kakashi thought as he waited in his place for the genins to apprehend him. The Kakashi's east, Sasuke stood on the branch of a relatively tall tree, from where he had a good view of Kakashi. From the moment he had heard about their sensei having a Sharingan, he was itching to test his strength against him. Back when he used to train with Itachi, he was aware Itachi had never used his full strength against him. But things were different now. He had grown much stronger than those days. Ever since that night, he trained every day until exhaustion with only one goal in his mind. He would kill Itachi no matter what. Activating his Sharingan, he took out 3 kunes and expertly threw them towards the unsuspecting Jounin, all of them aimed for a vital spot. However, he was surprised when Kakashi just sidestepped all 3 of them without even a glance. Jumping towards the Jounin, he took out shurikens this time and hurled towards Kakashi from a much closer distance. Yet again, Kakashi simply deflected all the shurikens with his own kunai swiftly. As Sasuke now stood before the Jounin, he seethed a little as their sensei was yet to take his eyes off his book. "Pay attention to the fight, damn it," Sasuke stated. His words, however, seemed to fall on deaf ears as he got no reply. "You say something?" Kakashi replied casually as he continued reading his book. Deciding to make him take things seriously, Sasuke rushed towards the Jounin with an impressive speed. Kakashi, however, was completely aware of his surroundings. Initially, he was surprised to notice the fully matured Sharingan in Sasuke and was impressed with his Shuriken jutsu too. As Sasuke closed the distance between them, he went for a punch to his sensei's left arm which Kakashi swatted away. But, he cringed ever so slightly as he felt the strength behind that hit. He was given no time to think as he had to jump back immediately as Sasuke came at him with a kick to his knee. However, having predicted Kakashi's next moves, Sasuke swiftly caught Kakashi by his left ankle and pulled him down with all his strength. Surprised by the move, Kakashi hit the ground with a thud. Sasuke immediately jumped back and smirked, but it soon faded away when he noticed a log of wood instead of Kakashi. "Whew, that was close. So, he seems to be well experienced in using the Sharingan. I suppose I'll have to take him a little seriously. I wonder what the other 2 are doing." Kakashi thought amused. "Well, Sasuke. You have got my attention. Your speed, movements and your ability with the Sharingan is certainly impressive, I must say." Kakashi stated out loud as he came out of the woods. "You'll have to take this seriously. I'm not your average genin," Sasuke replied smugly. Kakashi certainly agreed to that and kept his book back in his pouch. He then rushed toward Sasuke with high speed. Sasuke was momentarily shocked by speed but kept his calm. He could still follow Kakashi's movements with his Sharingan. As soon as Kakashi came close to him, the 2 engaged in a heated taijutsu battle. While Kakashi wasn't putting all his efforts into battling, he was pleasantly surprised that Sasuke was able to match him in speed and strength to some extent. However, after a few minutes of exchanging blows, he could see that the Uchiha was beginning to tire out. As Kakashi aimed a punch to Sasuke's abdomen, Sasuke quickly did a backflip, avoiding the punch by just a graze. "Heiten Gakakyu no Jutsu," Sasuke called out after performing the required hand seals and spewed a large ball of fire from his mouth, which then proceeded towards Kakashi at an alarming speed. Not one to do outdone by a mere genin, Kakashi stood his ground and performed his own hand seals to counter the Kaiten jutsu. "Suiton Miserapa," Kakashi said and shot a strong jet of water from his mouth, which clashed against the ball of fire. The 2 jutsus fought for dominance for a few seconds but ended up cancelling each other out. The clearing was now covered in thick mist because of the 2 jutsu colliding. Using the mist as a cover, Sasuke immediately performed a Shunshin no Jutsu and was now standing less than an arm's length from Kakashi. He promptly went for the bell and almost touched it when he felt someone catch his legs. Looking down, he was surprised to see it was an arm, and the next second, he was dragged into the ground with only his head sticking out. As the mist cleared, he glared at the Jounin who stood before him with an amused smile on his face. "That was a good fight, Sasuke. You almost got the bells too. I must say your battle strength is much stronger than that of a genin. I suppose I must go look for the others now." Kakashi said the last part out loud. He already knew where the others were. While he was able to find out Sakura easily, finding Naruto was quite the hard part. He just shuddered imagining Naruto's strength if Sasuke himself was things strong. "Let me out this instant," yelled Sasuke. He was humiliated at being done like this. Kakashi hummed as he got into a thinking pose for a second. I think not. He then stated with an eye smile. Sasuke stared at him stupidly, but he gave it no thought. He would get out it one way or another. From the sidelines, both Naruto and Sakura had spectated the entire fight. Naruto was extremely impressed by the fact that Sasuke was able to hold his own for that long against someone like Kakashi. He could tell that Kakashi barely put any effort into the fight, but he was sure even Sasuke didn't fight to his full extent. It was after all common for a shinobi to not reveal all his cards. While he was watching the two fight, he was certain even he would be hard-pressed to defeat Kakashi all on his own. If only he could convince Sasuke and Sakura to work with him. Suddenly his eyes widened as a realization struck him. That's what he meant. Konoha has never had a three-man genin squad, and it never will. Kakashi-sensei wants to see if we are willing to work together as a team for the good of the village. Naruto thought. He was amazed at the simplicity of the test, but also slightly embarrassed that he couldn't figure it out earlier. Now that he thought about it, their sensei did state that he wanted to check if we could work as a team. Remembering that made him feel further stupid. On the other hand, Sakura had an amazed look on her face on seeing Sasuke's strength. She was amazed that at his age, Sasuke could be so strong, and in her delusional world, she believed it was a close match, and if not for Kakashi's last move, her love would have certainly gotten the bells. However, she suddenly found her surroundings changing as she now saw Sasuke lying dead on the ground with large holes in his chest and blood flowing out of his body. She let out a loud and terrifying scream and fell unconscious on seeing the image of her loved one dead. Oh wow. What did she even see to be so scared? Kakashi thought, standing behind with a slightly confused look on his face. Well, there's only one person left now. I sure want to see how strong he has gotten. Kakashi was about to move towards Naruto when he felt a large build-up chakra. As he turned towards the source, his eyes widened in disbelief when he saw Sasuke's entire body covered in thin Raiten chakra. Moreover, he had also managed to free himself and was now standing on 2 feet, albeit slightly panting. He has already mastered 2 chakra manipulation at his age. Thought a startled Kakashi. That took more chakra than I anticipated. Thought Sasuke as he took deep breaths. He didn't even move a muscle when he noticed Naruto appear beside him, seemingly out of nowhere. You sure don't make things easy, Sasuke. Commented Naruto as he kept his eyes in Kakashi's direction. He knew very well where the Jounin was. Kakashi thought about apprehending the 2 genins immediately, but decided to give them a chance to regroup. Shut up, loser. It's not like you've been doing anything. Replied Sasuke, slightly irritated. If there was one thing which Sasuke envied about the Senju was his unnaturally large chakra reserves. Well, you're in no shape to fight all on your own. And Sakura is already unconscious. Also, I think there's a hidden meaning behind this test. If you think logically, Konoha has never had any 3-man squads. Teamwork has always been the most essential concept preached in our village, and I think that's what Kakashi-sensei wants to test, whether we can work together as a team. Naruto whispered. I don't need anyone's help. Sasuke replied, sharply glaring at the blonde with his Sharingan. Don't be stupid, Sasuke. You and I both know that you used quite a lot of chakra in getting out of the ground. And Kakashi-sensei hadn't gone easy on you in that Taijutsu spar. You won't be able to get the bells on your own. And you know very well that my reasoning regarding the hidden test was sound. You're not going to achieve your dream if you don't even pass this test. Naruto replied with slightly elevated tone and narrowed eyes. Regaining his strength a bit, Sasuke now stood straight beside Naruto. Thinking about his words, Sasuke couldn't find any flaw in Naruto's reason and had to say it sounded practical. Fine. Let's go with your plan. Can you wake Sakura up? Questioned Sasuke. Naruto nodded and the two swiftly proceeded to her location. Kakashi smirked, now sitting atop a tree branch. Looks like they figured it out. Now, all that's left to see is how well they perform together. Thought Kakashi. Naruto and Sasuke were now sitting deep into the woods with an unconscious Sakura beside them. Naruto placed his left palm on Sakura's forehead and a green-colored chakra covered his palm. Even though he wasn't proficient in using medical ninjutsu, he could still treat minor cuts and injuries. Well, Sakura was caught in a genjutsu initially, but she had passed out due to mental trauma. And judging by the fact that she was now beginning to stir, Naruto assumed it wasn't too major. Sasuke-kun, muttered Sakura as she stirred on the ground. A few seconds later she opened her eyes and found Naruto sitting beside her and Sasuke a few meters away. She immediately looked around herself, frantically wondering if this was a dream. Realizing that everything was normal, she breathed a sigh of relief on learning that Sasuke was alright. Naruto dumbly shook his head at the blind devotion the girl had towards the Uchiha. It was certainly mind-boggling at times. Deciding not to waste any further time, Naruto explained his plan to the two of them, and he was glad that both were on board with it. A little over 20 minutes had passed since Naruto and Sasuke had disappeared from the clearing in the middle. Kakashi guessed the three would be coming anytime soon, since there wasn't much time left until noon. His suspicion was proven right when Naruto jumped in front of him. "Oh, it's your turn now, eh?" The other two couldn't do much. "Deciding to try your own luck now?" Kakashi asked lazily, as his attention was once again planted in his books. "We'll see, Kakashi-sensei," stated both the Naruto as they began performing different hand seals quickly. "Otendori Taiga," said one of the Naruto as he placed both his hands on the ground. Immediately, the ground below Kakashi's feet transformed into a river of mud and he was forced to jump into the air. "Suiten Sashauha," yelled the other Naruto almost immediately as he materialized large volumes of water from thin air. Everyone else's eyes widened on witnessing the feat as the large volume of water went straight towards Kakashi at high speed. He was further alarmed when Sasuke appeared beside the blonde, directed his hand towards Naruto's Suiten Jutsu and shot a stream of electricity towards it. It's hard to believe these two are mere genin. They both could give any jounin a run for their money in ninjutsu. And I'm sure they haven't even revealed their entire strength yet, thought Kakashi, still shocked at what he was seeing. The very next second, the large wave of water engulfed him and his body jerked up countless times cause of the Raiten chakra mixed in the jutsu. The force of the jutsu pushed him back quite a bit while also destroying a few trees in the process. Once the jutsu died down, he hit the ground with a resounding thud. As he got up in tremendous pain, he panted harshly as he fell on his knees. He felt a strange sensation as he sensed the surrounding around him change slightly, displaying him the forest around him caught in an uncontrollable fire. This is Sakura's doing. Although not very proficient, the genjutsu would definitely trick a simple genin, thought Kakashi tiredly. As he somehow made a single hand seal and released chakra to break the genjutsu, he now noticed that all three of them were now standing before him. He smiled briefly under his mask on noticing the two bells in Sasuke's hands. Seeing as it was all done, he sat down on the ground, allowing his body to recover from the attack he just took. "Well, sensei?" asked Naruto with a wide smile. "I guess I shouldn't be surprised that you managed to figure out the hidden meaning behind the test. You all pass," said Kakashi with his traditional eye smile. Naruto and Sakura immediately jumped up in joy with large smiles on their faces, while Sasuke simply turned away from the other three. But Kakashi could see the slight smirk on the genin's face. "I suppose they aren't hopeless completely when it comes to working as a team," he thought. And thus began the tumultuous journey of Team 7, which would go on to leave an everlasting mark in the history of the shinobi world. Few months later. About 4 months had passed since Kakashi had passed Team 7. Since then, the team had gone on several missions as an official team of Konoha. However, none of them were even slightly pleased with the kind of missions they were given. Most of them included helping the civilians inside the village in their day-to-day chores, protecting important civilian figures within the village, and the one they hated the most was chasing a black cat named Tora. There were very few topics which everyone agreed to in Team 7. But all were in favor of the fact that the cat named Tora had to die. Though it was pet, it acted as a feral feline most of the time and would frequently run around the village, hiding from his owner. The only reason the cat wasn't put down was because it belonged to the wife of the fire daimyo. It really irked all the genin teams in the village. Team 8, which consisted of Hinata, Kiba and Shino, had also passed their genin test conducted by their sensei, Kurina Yuhi. She was known throughout the shinobi world as the Genjutsu Mistress of Konohagakure. As her moniker suggested, her main forte was Genjutsu, and her skill was often compared to the Genjutsu prowess of the Uchiha clan Sharingan. Team 10 consisted of Shikamaru, Ino and Choji, which was led Asuma Sarutobi, the son of the Sandaime Hokage. The man was once part of the 12 guardian shinobi, who were the elite group of people that guarded the fire daimyo. It was suffice to say that the current generation of genins were all led by powerful and respectable jounins. With all the teams busy with their missions and team training, the genins hardly got time to get together. Yet once in a week or so, they met each other in the barbecue shop, mainly on Choji's insistence. Despite Team 7 having relatively good team chemistry during the missions, Naruto felt slightly saddened that Sasuke still chose to ignore everyone else. But he hadn't given up hope yet. During their test, he was sure Sasuke had enjoyed battling Kakashi together and he wanted to make Sasuke realize that they could accomplish anything if they worked together. Currently, Team 7 was standing in the Hokage's office awaiting another mission. As usual, Kakashi stood beside his team reading his book blatantly. It was a couple of weeks after their test that he learned that the book read by Kakashi was written by Jiraiya. Surprised at that fact, he had once decided to peek at it from one of Jiraiya's collection. And he would never forget that day cause of the hell his mother had brought down on everyone at the Senju compound. Apparently, his mother absolutely loathed those books and so did most of the women in Konoha. He felt a little terrifying on seeing his Oji-chan get beaten up by his mother yet again. From that day forth, he swore he would never go near any of those books unless he faces the same fate as Jiraiya. Gigi, come on. Enough of these silly missions. We need to step out of the village too. We haven't even gotten a single mission higher than D rank. Whined Naruto. Despite knowing that Naruto was close to the Hokage, Sakura still found it hard to believe that he would speak to the Sandaime in such a manner. Sasuke shrugged his shoulders, not really caring about his attitude. He had known Naruto from a very young age, and the blonde had always been like this. Loud and brash. But, he did agree with Naruto's current statement. Naruto. Watch who you're speaking to. You guys are Genins and are only expected to be doing D-rank missions until your Jounin sensei makes a request otherwise. Berated Iruka, who stood beside the Hokage. He was generally the one who picked the missions for the Genin squads. But, Iruka-sensei, come on. You know we can handle a simple C-rank mission. Plus, how does the village expect us Genins to grow if we don't get any exposure to the outside world? Naruto questioned with a smirk. Iruka promptly became quiet as he could not think of any reply. He couldn't even say that Team 7 wasn't strong enough since he knew otherwise. Hiruzen chuckled at the mildly heated exchange between the two and pondered over it for a while. What do you think, Kakashi? Sarutobi finally asked the Jounin sensei. Kakashi eyed his team momentarily and turned towards the Hokage. I think they are ready, Hokage-sama. They will be able to handle a simple C-rank mission outside the village. I see. If you deem them worthy enough, I guess we can assign them one, don't you think, Iruka? Sarutobi glanced towards the Chunin and nodded hesitantly. Iruka then proceeded to walk out of the room and then came back a few minutes later, accompanying a bespectacled old man with a large beard and dark eyes. The old man wore a sleeveless V-neck shirt with an obi, pants and a pair of sandals. He also carried a towel around his neck and wore a pointed hat on his head. The most peculiar thing, however, was the large bottle of sake that he had in his hand. The Sandaime then excused the Chunin Academy teacher who then went back to the academy. Azuna-san, Team 7 here will be accompanying you back to the Land of Waves and ensure your security. Stated the Hokage. The man named Tazuna eyes the little kids for a few seconds scoffed. What? These brats. They don't look like anything. Replied Tazuna bluntly while also taking a swig of his sake. Hey. Who do you think you are calling us weak? And no one other than Tazuna was surprised that it was Sakura who spoke first. You heard what I said, little girl. I don't think you kids will be able to protect me, the master builder from the Land of Waves. Boasted Tazuna proudly. Sakura wanted to beat the man for calling their team weak but stopped when she felt her sensei's hand on her shoulders. She looked back to see Kakashi shake his head. I assure you, they'll be more than enough, Tazuna-san. You did say it's only an escort that you need and stated it's more than a C-rank mission. I would assign you higher rank shinobi if the mission rank was higher. Unless you're not telling us something. The Sandaime asked with a speculative gaze. Tazuna straightened up a bit on hearing the question. And no. Of course not. Well, if the Hokage says this team is good enough, I suppose I should just go with it. Tazuna replied. But everyone had seen the slight nervousness in the man's voice, albeit Sakura. That's good then. Team 7, I suppose this your first C-rank mission as per your request. Sarutobi said with a small smile, looking at Kakashi's team. And Tazuna-san. You may go and wait by the main gate. Team 7 will rendezvous with you shortly once they are packed with the necessities. Naruto, Sasuke, Sakura, get going and pack for 3 days of travel. We will meet at the eastern gate in 10 minutes. Everyone understood? Kakashi asked. Soon enough, Team 7 had left the Hokage's office to pack for the mission and Tazuna was escorted to the gate by an Anbu. However, Sarutobi's keen gaze had not missed the slight change in Tazuna's tone. Moreover, he was uncertain of the conditions in the Land of Waves since the Fire Nation or their village had no dealings with them currently. Isagi, get me teammate over here as soon as possible. Sarutobi commanded. While he was confident in Team 7's abilities, he did not wish to put them in any unnecessary danger. Moreover, it would be beneficial to have a team on standby for support if something went awry. A purple-haired Anbu suddenly materialized in front of the Hokage who knelt before her leader. Hi, Hokage-sama. She replied and disappeared from Sarutobi's view. The eastern gate of Konohagakure no Sato also the main gate. After 10 minutes, all the members of 7 had regrouped with backpacks, having packed all the necessities for their travel to the Land of Waves. This was the first time since any of these genin were traveling to that land but were more excited on prospect of finally embarking on a C-rank mission outside the village. Naruto wore a black jumpsuit with a grey haori, which had the symbol of the Senju clan engraved on the back and a pair standard shinobi sandal. He also had a blue backpack. Sasuke wore white shorts, white short, blue turtleneck t-shirt with the Uchiha clan symbol on its back and had a black backpack. And Sakura wore a red kipao dress with short sleeves and had a light yellow-colored backpack. "Everyone ready?" Kakashi asked. On the side, Tazuna was still unsure whether these kids would be able to protect him from the dangers that were awaiting him in his homeland, but he supposed he would just have to take the Hokage's word for it. He only hoped everything went according to plan. Still, he was glad to be able to secure a team of shinobi for protection. Once Kakashi received nods from all the members of his team, he looked towards Tazuna. "Tazuna-san, please stay in the middle. Naruto will stay in the front, Sakura on the right, Sasuke on the left, and I will stay behind you. That way, if anything happens, we'll be able to ensure your safety first." After clearing that with the bridge builder, Team 7 and Tazuna left the village and made their way towards the land of waves at civilian pace. Chapter 17 The Mission in Nami no Kuni Part 1. A couple of hours had passed since Team 7 and Tazuna had left Konoha. And not much had transpired with the group since then. Since they were traveling at civilian pace, it would take them about 3 hours more to reach Tazuna's house. Naruto was a little surprised by how much Tazuna could drink. He had already finished the bottle sake that he was carrying and had opened another one a little while ago. He chuckled on thinking that the self-proclaimed master bridge builder could give his mother a good contest when it came to drinking sake. It wasn't that he approved of his mother's drinking habits, but after years of telling her to quit and not seeing any change, he had listed her habit as a hopeless case. While Kakashi was busy reading his book most of their way, Sakura kept stealing glances toward Sasuke and to his surprise, a few times even at Tazuna. He assumed she wanted to ask him questions about his homeland. This was the first any three of them would be stepping outside the Fire Nation, let alone their village. So, it was only natural to be curious. "Tazuna-san, how does the land of waves look like?" Sakura finally asked. It was getting hard for her to remain quiet after this long. Tazuna wiped some sake off his beard and looked towards the pink-haired girl. Nami no Kuni is essentially an island, surrounded by ocean on all sides. It has a lot of rivers running through it and our land is mainly famous for the mangrove forest. And there are several different species of animals residing in that forest too. Nami no Kuni doesn't have any shinobi village, so you wouldn't see too many shinobi out there," replied the old man. From the sound of it, the place seemed to be an amazing place for a short vacation to Sakura and Naruto. Having lived their whole life surrounded by the lush green forests of their village, they had never seen an ocean before. "So, how do you guys protect yourself if there's ever an attack? Isn't it scary having no sort of protection?" Sakura questioned curiously. "Such lands normally request the closest shinobi village for assistance, Sakura. Most of the people in Nami no Kuni don't have any form of training. Their main source of business also depends on trade and commerce. So, it's unlikely for shinobi to attack a place such as that. But then again, anything could happen in the shinobi world." It was Kakashi who had replied and shed some light regarding the land they were traveling to. Sakura was surprised on hearing that no one had any form training in Nami no Kuni. She spent her whole life living among ninjas, so she guessed it would strange for her to live in a place that had no shinobi. While Sasuke wasn't really interested in any of talks that he heard, he too was surprised by that fact. It eventually became quiet again as the group kept walking towards their destination. It was a relatively sunny day, and the canopy of the large trees provided a perfect shade for the people walking by. Naruto's eyes suddenly caught a small pool of puddle to his right, which he found to be quite strange. It certainly hadn't rained in the past few days, and there wasn't sign of water anywhere around them. He discreetly glanced back towards and noticed that Sasuke too had caught on to that. Deciding not to voice his thoughts, he kept his guard up in case something unexpected happened. He wasn't proven wrong. As soon as the five passed by the small puddle, two shinobi swiftly appeared out of the small pool of water and bound Kakashi with shuriken lace chains, effectively cleaving them in half. "Kakashi-sensei." Sakura screamed in horror on seeing her sensei get killed out of nowhere. Naruto and Sasuke immediately jumped in front of Tazuna and Sakura. On observing the two shinobi before them, they noticed that the two had Kurigakure forehead protectors with slash mark across them. "Missing ninja," Naruto commented with narrowed eyes. It was Sasuke who made the first move and ran towards the two with a kunai in hand. "Sakura, protect Tazuna, okay?" Naruto said, and following the Uchiha's lead, he too ran towards the ex-Kiri shinobi. As Naruto and Sasuke neared the two missing ninjas, Sasuke went for the one covered in black cloak while Naruto went for the other one. Sasuke promptly went for a slash across the shinobi's chest which was blocked a large metal gauntlet. Ducking under the shinobi, Sasuke gave a hard kick to the person's chin, making him grunt in pain. While Sasuke's opponent was slightly disoriented, Naruto made a single hand seal, creating a cage bunshin, which went straight for the metal chain connecting the metal gauntlet worn by the two shinobi. "Ozu, you alright?" asked the one Naruto was facing. "Yeah, Amazu. These kids are better than expected." We may need to put more effort," stated the shinobi wearing the black cloak. Sasuke and Naruto now stood beside each other, blocking the straight path to Sakura and Tazuna. The old bridge builder was sweating profusely as he thought that the Jounin team leader was already dead. He just wondered how long these kids would be able to hold the two shinobi if they could kill even a Konoha Jounin. Sakura too was not having a good time. She would be lying if she said she wasn't feeling scared. Gozu and Mizu momentarily looked at each other and nodded. While Mizu ran straight towards Naruto and Sasuke, Gozu jumped high into the air and threw several shuriken aimed at Tazuna and Sakura, who had their eyes widened in fear. Sasuke ran forward to block Mizu, and the two engaged in taijutsu, while Sakura shakily held a kunai in her hand. However, Naruto appeared in front of Tazuna and Sakura immediately and gracefully deflected all the shurikens aimed at the two behind him with his own kunai. He then quickly took out 3 more kunais from his back pouch, coated them with futon chakra and flung them towards Gozu, who was still in midair. Before Gozu could realize what had happened, the 4 kunais pierced his body in different parts and he fell onto the ground with a large thud. "Gozu!" yelled Mizu in fear as he looked at his brother's fallen body. Taking his chance, Sasuke lunged forward and slashed the shinobi's neck before he could react. Naruto then proceeded to check if Gozu was certainly dead and then went back to regroup with Sakura and Tazuna once he was certain. Sakura couldn't believe that Naruto and Sasuke had just killed 2 shinobis who had taken out their sensei. She was still shaking a little in fear, wondering what they would do next. While Tazuna was relieved as well as surprised at the Konoha's genin skills, even he was slightly apprehensive about what was about to come. "Naruto. Kakashi-sensei. Stuttered Sakura as Naruto approached her with a warm smile. It was at this time that Kakashi suddenly appeared behind Naruto, greatly surprising Sakura and Tazuna. "You're not dead?" exclaimed both Sakura and Tazuna. "Of course not. Look there," Kakashi said calmly, pointing towards a log of wood where Kakashi was believed to have died. "I simply substituted myself. I would have stepped in if things went out of hands, but it appears you guys had it under control. All 3 of you did a great job," Kakashi congratulated with an eye smile. Sakura had the decency to appear a little shy as she realized she had never noticed that log of wood earlier or thought about looking around for their sensei. By this time, Sasuke and Naruto had already regrouped with the others. Unlike Sakura, they were already aware of the fact that Kakashi had substitution to escape earlier. Considering everything that happened right now, Kakashi was suspicious as to why the demon brothers from Kiri were after Tazuna. The 2 were mere chunins who had gone rouge a few years back, along with another shinobi. This completely changed the scope of the mission they were originally given. He turned towards Tazuna with narrowed eyes and sighed on seeing the nervousness on the man's face. "What's going on, Tazuna-san? These 2 were chunins and missing ninja from Kurigakure. We weren't informed that you were targeted by missing ninja. What is it that you're not telling us?" Kakashi asked firmly. You see." Tazuna chuckled nervously under the stern gaze of the Jounin. "Tazuna-san, if you tell us everything honestly, we'll be able to protect you better, you know." Naruto chipped in to make the bridge builder feel at ease. Tazuna sighed tiredly and decided to tell them. It would do him no good after all the trouble he went to hire a team of shinobi. It all started a few months. As Kakashi-san had stated earlier, our nation depends on trade and commerce for business. A while back, a man named Gato set his sights on our land. He opened a base of operations in our country and ever since then has taken control of all the trade routes, all of which are by sea. Since then, the people of my land hardly get any profits or make enough money to sustain our families. The livelihood of our land has gone completely down. And no one can speak against Gato or do anything in fear. So, I decided, if I managed to build a bridge from Nami no Kuni to Hai no Kuni, we would have another trade route which would allow us to open business by land with Hai no Kuni. But, I also knew Gato wouldn't just allow me to build a bridge. That's why I decided to hire shinobi from Konohagakure no Sato to oversee my family and I while the bridge gets built," confessed Tazuna as he began feeling guilty. He wasn't sure if the Konoha shinobi would still choose to come with him now that they knew the whole truth. The future of his land depended on this bridge he was planning to build. Naruto and Sakura were both saddened by hearing Tazuna's words and genuinely wished to help him. "That still does not explain why you chose for a C-rank mission. You could have told the truth to the Hokage and I'm sure he would have arranged something according to your needs," Kakashi replied. "I only had enough money for a C-rank mission, Kakashi-san," Tazuna said with his head hung low. "Kakashi-sensei, we have to help them." Obviously Tazuna-san didn't have any wrong intentions with him when he came to Konoha. He was just thinking about the welfare of his family and his land. Naruto commented, hoping to persuade Kakashi. "But the mission has now become an A-rank mission. And you guys are certainly not ready for that." Kakashi said, still thinking through things. We should continue. We aren't so weak, and you know that. Kakashi was a little surprised when he heard Sasuke's voice. He certainly did not expect that from him. But, he also knew there was truth in his words. Sasuke and Naruto were indeed strong. While Sakura wasn't as strong as her teammates, she was good in a supportive role. Looking at the eager faces of his team, he sighed, knowing he may regret this decision. Alright. Since everyone seems to be confident, we'll continue with it. But everyone needs to be on guard. This time it was two chunin, it will probably be someone stronger who confronts us next. Yeah. You can count on us, Kakashi-sensei. Team 7 can handle anything. Cheered Naruto as he pumped his fist in the air. Sasuke also smirked, knowing he would get to have more fights. For him to get stronger, he would need to test his strength against stronger opponents. The ones he faced before were both pathetic in his regard. A look of relief washed over Tizuna's face as he gratefully looked towards the blonde kid. Maybe with these shinobi, Nami no Kuni might get another chance to thrive despite Gato's rule. Kakashi then proceeded to store the two dead shinobi in a scroll, and once everyone had collected their bags, the group of 5 was once again en route towards Tizuna's house. Another hour had passed as Tizuna and the Konoha shinobi now began nearing the coast, from where they had to take a boat to Nami no Kuni. A few minutes, the area began to slowly get surrounded by mist. At first it was only minimal, but the more they walked forward, the more the mist increased. Everyone suddenly came to a stop as it became hard for everyone to see. Sasuke's eyes immediately turned to the Sharingan as he looked around himself, ready to defend himself any second. Sakura too took out a kunai and got into a fighting stance beside Tizuna, appearing to be slightly more confident than before. This isn't any normal mist. There's chakra laced in it. Naruto confirmed. Upon further inspection, he could also feel 2 more chakra signatures. Kakashi calmly observed his surroundings and kept his senses on high alert to check for any sort of movement. Duck! Kakashi yelled hurriedly. Without another thought, everyone immediately ducked down as they heard a large sword cleaving the space above them. Sharingan no Kakashi. It's no wonder Gozu and Maizu failed to capture the bridge builder. Their skill is nothing compared to the likes of you. Team 7 and Tizuna heard a menacing voice echo through the area. Tizuna dropped his backpack as he took a couple of steps back in fears, unable to withstand the killing intent that was being radiated in the area. While Kakashi, Naruto and Sasuke were able to stand their ground firmly, Sakura was not faring well. She had never felt this much killing intent before and was beginning to feel herself shake. This is too much. This how jounins fight. She thought morbidly. She slowly brought her kunai close to her own neck as he thought it would be better to kill herself than stand another second in this pressure. Oh? Already scared are you, little girl? Genin's weakness these days disgusts me. But, don't worry. I will put you out of your misery soon enough. The voice echoed again, and a few tears unknowingly slipped her eyes as the voice appeared to be coming from right behind her. She shut her eyes close and waited for anything, but all she heard was the sound of metal clanking. Buiten de Toppa, Naruto said, exhaling a large wall air all around his team to disperse the mist surrounding them. Don't worry, Sakura. I shall always protect my teammates. You don't have to worry as long as I'm here. Kakashi assured as he held off the shinobi holding the large sword with just a kunai. A few seconds, both Kakashi and the shinobi jumped back to get some distance from each other. Naruto and Sasuke immediately stood in front of Sakura and Tizuna protectively. You guys, stand back. This person is a jounin, just like me. He's a dangerous shinobi. I'll deal with him myself. Kakashi ordered with complete seriousness. Who is he? Asked Sasuke. Judging by how the man was swinging that large sword, he must have incredible physical strength. His body was itching for a fight now, on seeing this shinobi. Zabuza Mamachi, also known as the Kurigakure no Kijin. Kakashi stated as he lifted his forehead protector off his left eye and revealed a fully matured Sharingan. Zabuza eyed the blonde kid momentarily before turning his attention towards Kakashi. The Sharingan already, huh? Guess you're deciding to take the fight seriously. That's good to know, Zabuza taunted. Naruto, however, was concerned about the second chakra signature he had sensed earlier. He knew there was someone hiding within the trees to their right. But it confused him that the person did chose to hide rather than to come out in the open. Sasuke, there's another person hiding at the top to our right. We must be careful in case the person drops by suddenly. Naruto whispered under his breath. Sasuke simply nodded as he kept his eyes glued to the two jounins who were still staring at each other. A dumb look appeared on Naruto's face for a second as he realized the Uchiha was too enthralled to watch Kakashi and Zabuza fight. He couldn't blame him. Even he wanted to see his sensei's skill in a real fight. Without a moment's notice, Zabuza ran straight towards Kakashi, who stood his ground firmly. As the former Kiri shinobi was a meter away from Kakashi, he swung his large sword horizontally, hoping to cleave the Konoha Jounin in half. With a show of impressive strength, Kakashi managed to block the sword with his kunai, but a few seconds later his hand began to budge slightly. Quickly jumping up, Kakashi aimed a kick to Zabuza's head, sending the large man stumbling a few feet back. Reacting swiftly, Zabuza performed a few hand seals, and to his surprise, Kakashi began mimicking him perfectly. Suiton Suryuitan no Jutsu finished both the Jounins at the same time. Two columns of water suddenly rose from the water in the form of a large dragon and raced towards each other. As the two jutsus collided, the entire area was showered with water all around. Naruto performed a Doton jutsu to erect a small wall in front of his team and Tazuna, which deflected the strong current of water to their sides. As the area cleared down a little more, Kakashi noticed that Zabuza was not standing atop water. Not wasting any time, Kakashi ran forward at high speeds. As soon as Kakashi came close, his hands began sparkling with electricity, and before Zabuza could react, he ducked under another of the former Kiri shinobi swings and thrusted his arm into his ribs. "Dodori," Kakashi said, but to his horror, the person before him dissolved into water as soon as his hand met the body. Another Zabuza suddenly rose from the water behind Kakashi and within a second sliced his large sword through Kakashi's head. Zabuza smirked, thinking that he had won the duel, but his smile soon faded as the Kakashi before him turned into electricity and he felt himself getting electrocuted. With sheer strength, Zabuza pulled himself back together and jumped back to look around himself. He gritted his sharp teeth in frustration as he noticed the Sharingan wielder was still standing on land. "Raiden Kage Bunshin," Naruto said in amazement. The Kage Bunshin was one of his special jutsus, and he had never thought of utilizing it with an element in such a way. Sasuke was equally amazed at the fight he was witnessing. It was only due to his years of constant training that he was able to withstand the killer intent the two Jounins were giving off. "It doesn't look like you can stand anymore, Zabuza," Kakashi commented with his usual blank expression. "Heh. Don't act as if you've won," panted Zabuza, now on his knees. Kakashi's senses suddenly went on high alerts as he felt someone behind him. By the time he turned back, he noticed another Zabuza behind him who kicked him right in the chest, sending him flying towards the water. As Kakashi rose from the water again, his eyes widened in horror. "This isn't normal water," he thought. "Suiton Suro no Jutsu," Zabuza called out as Kakashi got trapped in a sphere of water. He tried getting out but realized that the water surrounding him was noticeably heavier. "Kakashi-sensei," Naruto yelled on seeing his sensei get captured in that jutsu. "You guys, make a run for it as quickly as possible. Zabuza can't come after you so long as he keeps me trapped inside this jutsu," Kakashi yelled from within the sphere of water. Sakura was on the verge of tears as she realized the predicament their team was in. Until now she never realized the life of a shinobi could turn out to be like this. Kakashi's eyes widened yet again as he saw Naruto and Sasuke step forward instead of heeding to his advice. "Who do you think we are, Kakashi-sensei? We can't leave you behind. We are a team after all," Naruto declared. Naruto and Sasuke looked at each other shortly and nodded. "Oh? You mere genins think you can defeat me? You guys got guts, I will say that." Zabuza laughed as he created 10 Mizu Bunshins using his free hand. "Heitan Gakakyu no Jutsu," Sasuke said, breathing out a large ball of fire from his mouth. "Fuiton to Toppa," Naruto called out, blowing a large gust of wind which further fueled the Kaiten Jutsu, making it grow tremendously. As the two combined jutsu rushed towards Zabuza, 5 of his clones appeared before him and cleaved the large ball of fire. However, his eyes widened when the Kaiten Jutsu died down, a hail of kunai and shurikens coated in Raiten chakra came rushing towards the remaining clones, dispelling them effectively. He further noticed that the dark-haired kid now had a Fuma shuriken in his hands, which was then flung straight towards him. Zabuza smirked when he simply sidestepped the Fuma shuriken and dodged it easily. "Ah, what was with that aim?" Zabuza questioned as he laughed. He must say, the kids weren't half bad. However, he regained his composure when he couldn't find the blonde kid anywhere before him. Suddenly looking behind him, a surprised look appeared on his face. The Fuma shuriken he had dodged now transformed into the blonde kid who threw a kunai towards his arm that was holding the water sphere keeping Kakashi trapped. He cursed himself for being so laxed as he now had to jump away from his unless get hit by that kunai. Soon as Zabuza jumped away, the water sphere keeping Kakashi trapped immediately dissolved, freeing him. "Naruto, get back now. You've done enough. I appreciate the help," Kakashi stated as he took deep breaths to calm himself. Naruto smirked at Sasuke and his handiwork and jumped back beside his team. He couldn't deny he wasn't having fun, and from the look on Sasuke's face, Naruto was sure he was too. He smiled slightly as he felt just like the old times when Sasuke and him used to train together. "The kid just got lucky," Zabuza commented. He certainly couldn't take these two kids lightly now. They proved to be better than he expected. Don't flatter yourself, Zabuza. You were forced to let go. Kakashi replied, making the swordsman get further irritated. Deciding not to reply to Kakashi's taunts, Zabuza began performing a set of long strings of hand seals. He was beginning to tire out slightly and did not have much stamina left. That Raiden Cage Bunshin combined with the surrounding water had weakened him considerably. He would need to make sure his last attack was a powerful one. However, a horrified look appeared on his face as he noticed Kakashi once again copying him, but this time the Konoha Jounin was doing it faster than him. How? Zabuza started. Can I read your mind? Kakashi said, finishing Zabuza's sentence. Once again, Zabuza became speechless, not knowing how Kakashi was able to pull this off. However, Sasuke had a smirk on his face as he knew exactly how his sensei was able to perform that feat. He kept his Sharingan active all the while, copying any of the jutsus he had seen in this fight. It may prove to be useful in the future. It seemed as if Kakashi was quite proficient in using the Sharingan. This is the end, Zabuza. Kakashi said as he finished performing the hand seal before Zabuza could. Suiten Daibakufu no Jutsu, Kakashi yelled. Suddenly a large tidal wave of water, something akin to a cyclone, rose from behind Kakashi and crashed into Zabuza roughly. The jutsu continued to push Zabuza back and crashed into several trees until it died down. Once the water had cleared a little, everyone noticed that Zabuza was passed out on the ground. Kakashi weakly walked towards the ground with a kunai in his hand, hoping to kill Zabuza when another presence arrived on the field. Naruto and Sasuke narrowed their eyes when they saw another shinobi with long hair and white mask covering their face. I must thank you, Konoha shinobi. I had been chasing Zabuza for quite some time and you saved me trouble of fighting alone, said the shinobi in a rather gentle voice. He then took out two senbon needles from his pouch and expertly flicked them towards the downed Zabuza on his neck. Who are you? Questioned Sasuke. From the looks of it, this shinobi had been here for a while and had witnessed the entire fight between them. I'm a hunter ninja from Kurigakure. I was sent to capture the shinobi named Zabuza Mamachi, dead or alive, stated the person. It's alright guys. This is not a matter of our village anymore, Kakashi said, barely able to stand. He had used a lot of chakra in his fight with Zabuza and he had overused the Sharingan, rendering him extremely weak as of now. The hunter ninja from Kurigakure then proceeded to seal Zabuza's body in a scroll and took off without any further talks. Izuna sighed in huge relief as he finally realized the fight had ended. He couldn't how ridiculously strong these shinobi were. Though he had never really seen shinobi fight before, what he had witnessed today was certainly incredible and he was sure that this group could protect him from any danger. Everyone's attention suddenly turned towards Kakashi as he suddenly fell on the ground with heavy breaths. It was Naruto who immediately rushed towards him, followed by Sakura and Sasuke. Sensei, are you okay? Naruto asked with worry. He placed the palm of his hand on Kakashi's chest as he tried looking for any kind of injury. Don't worry. I think I overused the Sharingan a lot for today and I'm very low on chakra right now. I don't think I'll be able to move for rest of the day. Kakashi replied tiredly. Being a non-Uchiha, he can't turn his Sharingan off. So, it constantly siphons off his chakra. I am surprised he could last even that long. Sasuke shared as he folded his arms over his chest. Naruto's hands began glowing with green chakra as he tried to ease off Kakashi's pain a little. Sakura could only stare in awe as she looked at her team. She felt ashamed that she couldn't help her teammates in any way, but she remained quiet about it. She did not wish to weigh anyone down. Glancing at Sasuke and Naruto, she found it hard to fathom how much stronger they were compared to rest of their class. Up until now, she had only seen at the bright side of being a shinobi and never really cared about anything else. But during their mission today, it made her realize how utterly diminished her skills as a ninja were. She never really practiced any of the shinobi skills back at home and her only strong point was her knowledge and chakra control. Maybe, she could ask Kakashi-sensei to help her out once he had recovered. She did not ever want to have this feeling of apprehension again. A few minutes later, once Naruto was done, Kakashi breathed a sigh of relief as he felt a little rejuvenated. He was highly surprised with Naruto's skill in medical ninjutsu. Of course, Tsunade-sama would make him delve into it. She is regarded as the greatest medical ninja in the shinobi world currently. Kakashi thought. My house is not that far from here. We should be able to reach there within 40 minutes. Tazuna said once he saw that Kakashi could stand. While Sakura helped Tazuna with his backpack, Sasuke and Naruto helped Kakashi walk, and the group of 5 once again went on their way towards Tazuna's house in Nami no Kuni. About 200 feet northwest of the area where Team 7 fought Zabuza, stood 2 people with curious looks in their eyes. Well, that wasn't too bad, if I must say. The boy certainly has some skill. chuckled the larger of the two, displaying his shark-like teeth. I agree. We must keep following them. Leader Sama wants as much information about the Kyuubi Jinchuriki he can get. Let's go kiss him. Stated the shorter one in a monotone voice. An hour later in Nami no Kuni. As Team 7 followed Tazuna to his house, they were utterly shocked on seeing the state Nami no Kuni's people. Most of the people had gloomy looks on their faces and accompanied by their skinny frame, it appeared as if they barely got to eat anything most of the days. A lot of the shops they came across were closed and the ones which were open appeared to be inadequately stocked from the outside. That was a stark contrast to how the place looked. There were tall lush green trees surrounding the road they were walking on and the air had a sort of wet feel to it. Naruto assumed it was mostly humid because the place was surrounded by ocean. There were also a few stray dogs and cats that were lying beside one of the fountains in the market district they had crossed not too long ago. A few minutes later, they stopped in front of a two-story house, which was fell on the outskirts. The house had a small porch which had 2 seats and a small table in it. Though the house did not look as bad as the ones the team had across the town a while back, they could see that the property had seen better days. But, it wasn't their place to complain. In fact, they were looking forward to meeting Tazuna's family, who lived with his daughter and grandson. As the 5 now waited outside the main door of the house, it was shortly opened by a relatively young lady with long blue-colored hair. She wore a short-sleeved pink shirt with the end of the sleeves and the collar being red in color. She also wore a long blue skirt. "Dusan, you're back. Oh, and who might these people be?" the lady asked warmly. "Tsunami, these are Konoha shinobi. I hired them for protection against Gato and his men. You wouldn't believe the day I had today." Tazuna said rather excitedly as he stepped inside the house and invited the others in too. "Calm yourself down first. You must be tired from your long journey." Tsunami said and then turned towards the Konoha shinobi, who looked to be quite tired too from their looks. Why don't you wait, sit down over here. I will get everyone some water," she said. Sasuke and Naruto gently placed Kakashi over a futon and then the 3 genin sat on the dining table beside Tazuna, who had taken out yet another bottle of sake. "Kakashi-sensei, how long do you think you'll take to recover?" Sakura asked on seeing her sensei's half-lidded eyes. He must be extremely exhausted after his fight with that man named Zabuza, she thought. "Well, by tomorrow hopefully, I will be recovered from chakra exhaustion," Kakashi replied. "Oh, that reminds me, would send a letter to Hokage-sama, telling him everything that happened. It's important." A few seconds later, Tsunami entered the room, carrying a tray with pitcher of water and several glass. As she placed it on the table, all 3 genins immediately took a sip of the cold water and felt their body cool down slightly. Naruto also handed a glass of water to Kakashi as the jounin could barely move by himself right now. The Konoha shinobi then went on to introduce themselves to Tsunami one by one and Tazuna narrated all the events that had transpired on his way back to Nami no Kuni to his daughter. "Oh, my. That sounds terrible. I'm so glad you're okay, Tusan. And I sincerely can't thank you people for protecting my Tusan, even though he wasn't honest in the beginning," she said earnestly, with a deep bow to Team 7. Naruto and Sakura felt a little embarrassed on being treated in such a way, which was evident with a slight blush on both their faces, while Sasuke did not really care about any of these pleasantries. He was just glad to be sitting somewhere after their long journey. However, there was one thing that had been bugging him for the past hour or so. "Please, you don't have to be so formal with us. We are glad to be of help. And we'll certainly make sure this Gato doesn't interfere with Tazuna-sen's business," Naruto replied cheerily. Tsunami giggled lightly on seeing such enthusiastic behavior from Naruto and it made her feel a little at ease about her father's work. Initially, she had been greatly worried about her father's life. Gato had made everyone's life miserable in Nami no Kuni and maybe now, they had some hope. Just then, they heard someone scoff from near the stairs, followed by loud receding stomping. "That was my son, please excuse him. He's not that good with people. But he's generally a very nice boy," Tsunami said in a low voice. Everyone could see that she seemed a little troubled about her son, but no one brought up any questions regarding that now. "By the way, Kakashi-sensei, aren't hunter ninja supposed to cut off their target's head and burn the body to prevent it from falling into enemies' hands? The hunter ninja we encountered did not follow the proper protocol which I had read about." Sasuke voiced his doubts. On hearing that, both Naruto and Kakashi's eyes widened a little. While Naruto did not know about this fact, he did feel something off about that shinobi who showed himself as a hunter ninja. "You may be right, Sasuke. That is the normal protocol that is followed by the hunter ninjas of all villages. Moreover, now that I think about it, even the Senbon needles must have been to put Zabuza in a death-like state in case we checked him for any vitals. I should have made sure to check him earlier," Kakashi uttered, sounding distressed. "So, wait, you don't mean Zabuza is still alive, do you, sensei?" Sakura questioned fearfully. Tazuna had the same apprehensive look appear on her face, while Tsunami looked rather confused by all the talks. But, she understood that this Zabuza person was one of the people who had tried to kill her father. That is correct, Sakura. And that hunter ninja was most likely an accomplice of Zabuza. However, I do think it might be a few days before they attack again. Probably 3 to 4 days. And Zabuza and that hunter ninja may not be alone the next time they attack. So, do ask Hokage-sama to send another squad for assistance when you send the letter. Kakashi said seriously. His face softened relatively the very next second. Tazuna-san, do you have a room my team could use for the time we'll be here? I really do need to take some rest. Of course. What kind of host do you think I am? Tazuna replied grumpily, the effects of the sake clearly visible on his slightly red face. Naruto and Sasuke helped Kakashi get up and followed Tazuna upstairs, while Sakura followed Tsunami to the kitchen to help with dinner preparations. As soon as Kakashi lied down on the floor, he immediately passed out as the exhaustion from the entire day hit him with full force. Sasuke then began writing the letter that would be sent to the Sandaime, reporting about the demon brothers, Zabuza, and requesting for further help. He stopped midway when another question bothered him. How will we deliver the letter to the Hokage? We don't have any means. Sasuke stated. Naruto raised his eyebrow in confusion, but then realized Sasuke wasn't aware of his summoning contract. Instead of replying, he bit his thumb to draw some blood and performed a few hand seals. Fuchius no Jutsu, Naruto said quietly. Immediately there was a puff of smoke in the room and there appeared to be a small toad sitting before Sasuke. It was a small orange toad with purple markings around his eyes, mouth and stomach. The toad appeared to be small enough to fit on Naruto's head. Yo boss. What do you need? The toad asked, further surprising Sasuke. Naruto chuckled softly on seeing the surprised look on Sasuke's face. Little did Naruto know that, internally Sasuke felt a slight bit of anger. The blonde was getting stronger with every passing moment and it made him wonder realistically if he'd able to beat Naruto in a fight to death. While Sasuke was aware of Naruto's Kekkei Jinkai, Mokuton, he had his own trump card, which he was certain no one knew about. But then again, he wondered if that'd be enough. Itachi's words from the night when he slaughtered his clan still haunted him to this day. Hey Kichi, can you deliver a scroll to Sandaime Jiji for me? It's important and he needs to get it right away. Naruto replied and even gave the toad some candies which he took out of his pouch. Gamakichi instantly lapped the candies with a long tongue and swallowed it all, greatly enjoying the taste of it. Sure thing. You can count on me. And thanks for the candies. Gamakichi replied with a satisfied look on his face. Hey Sasuke. Are you okay? You spaced out there for a moment. He heard Naruto's voice and dazed out of his thoughts. When did you sign a summoning contract? Sasuke questioned, trying not to sound too interested. I think about a year ago or so. But, I was saying, Gamakichi will deliver the letter to Sandaime Jiji. It wouldn't take more than 10 minutes. He'll go back to Mount Mayaboku and from there he'll go to the Hokage's office. Naruto explained. Deciding not to probe any further, Sasuke quickly wrote the letter in a scroll and handed it to the frog, who disappeared after waving goodbye to the blonde. Few hours later, once Kakashi had woken up from his well-needed sleep, Naruto, Sasuke and Kakashi were sitting at the dining table along with Tazuna and were waiting for dinner to be served. About 10 minutes later, Tsunami and Sakura walked into the living room with several steaming bowls and placed it on the table. Soon enough, the two girls also joined the table and the last to enter the room was Tsunami's son, Inari. He was a young kid with spiky black hair and dark-colored eyes. He wore a green jumpsuit with a yellow shirt and simple pair of sandals. In addition, he also wore a blue and white striped hat. Inari, come on. Take a seat. You wouldn't want the dinner to get cold. Tsunami urged. The Konoha shinobi found it a little strange that Inari did not utter anything. He simply sat down and began eating his food. The other people on the table also started taking small portions of food onto their plate and started eating, shortly. While eating his food, Inari kept glancing towards Naruto as his face turned into a frown. About 15 minutes or so into dinner, the young boy abruptly got up on his spot, catching everyone else's attention. Do you think you're some sort of hero? You're just going to die if you try going against Geto and his men. There's no way you can beat him. You don't know how much we have suffered under him. I doubt you even know what it means to suffer. You probably lived your whole life sheltered in the shinobi village. Yelled Inari, taking aback Team 7 with his words. Why do you say such things? Questioned Naruto calmly. The blonde was genuinely interested in Inari's way of thinking. Because, there's no such thing as hope. Retorted Inari. Tsunami gained a concerned look on her face on hearing her child's words. It hurt her that he would think that way. She tried calm him and make him sit down, but Inari simply ignored her touch and glared at the blonde shinobi in front of him. It's true, I have no idea what you went through and I don't know how the people of this land really feel, but I know one thing for sure. Naruto said quietly as he too got up and stared directly into Inari's eyes. No matter how hard a situation gets, that's no excuse to give up. You may not be able to find a solution right away, but if you keep trying, one day, you definitely will. But, the moment you give up and abandon everything you believe in, that is when all hope is truly lost. And I will never give up, and that's my ninja way. Naruto replied passionately. The other members of Team 7 and even Tazuna and Tsunami were enthralled by Naruto's words, and they could feel his earnest feelings behind them, but Inari simply seemed to get more irritated on hearing Naruto. Stop saying nonsense. You're only saying that because you're a ninja. You don't know what it means to be lonely or what it means to lose someone. Inari shouted as a few tears dropped from his eyes. He expected the blonde to retort, to yell at him otherwise, but was surprised on hearing the melancholy tone. I've been hated by my village from the moment I was born. I have been scorned and attacked by the entire village from the time I could begin to walk and think properly. And not a day goes by when I'm not glared at by them. I never had a father figure in my life. But, my mother tries her best to make sure I don't feel lonely, and I love her for that. So, I believe, I could understand your pain a little. Despite all that, I still haven't given up hope. I want to make the villagers acknowledge me and look at me differently. I want to be Hokage someday and protect my village despite of what they might think of me. Because, even if they do hate me, I love everyone in the village with all my heart. And I can assure you, I will never give up hope. Naruto said and quietly walked out of the house. He wished to be alone for a while, to clear his head. Bringing up all those memories of his childhood made him unable to think practically. Inari stared at Naruto's spot for a few more seconds as more tears slipped his eyes. He suddenly left the dining table and ran upstairs, unable to stay in that room any longer. Inari. Tsunami called out and was about to go after him when Tazuna caught her wrist. Give him some time, Tsunami. I think he needs it right now. Tazuna said in a surprisingly gentle voice. Kakashi-sensei, why is Naruto hated by the villagers? Sakura questioned meekly. She felt ashamed that she was one of the people who had ridiculed him years ago, in front of everyone. Even now, when their team went on simple D-rank missions around the village, she had noticed the looks filled with anger and hatred directed towards Naruto. And it baffled her, in spite of all that Naruto could remain to be so happy. Sasuke, on the other hand, was already aware of the reason, but decided to stay quiet about it. It's not my place to answer that question, Sakura. I assume when the time is right, Naruto will reveal the truth to you, himself. Kakashi replied. He too felt disheartened on hearing Naruto's words. He felt proud of the fact that Naruto understood the villagers' feelings and did not hate them, but at the same time, the way the villagers treated their hero saddened him immensely. While the people on the dining table finished their dinner silence, Naruto had walked to a small clearing inside the woods in front of Tazuna's house. Gazing up at the night sky, the silver color radiating off the moon reminded him of her eyes. He couldn't really understand why he was having these feelings, but he wished Hinata was beside him. Aside from his mother and Shizune, she was the one girl who never judged him for anything and was always there in his time of sadness. Her warm wide eyes always seemed to bore deep into his soul that made him feel affluent, and besides, she always knew what to say to uplift his mood. He felt a little sad as he hadn't spent much time with her lately because of all the missions and team training in the village. He tried to cheer himself up thinking once their team returned to the village after this mission, he would spend a little more time with her. He laughed awkwardly as he wasn't really sure how to convey all these feelings to her. His own heart felt like an alien to him right now. Seeing that it wasn't even midnight yet, Naruto decided to train for a few hours and then return to Tazuna's home. Maybe that would lighten his mood. Unknown to the blonde, there was a set of red eyes, discreetly watching him from atop a tree as he practiced his taijutsu katas. It had been quite some time since Itachi had seen Naruto and was glad that the Senju heir seemed to be doing well. As a few more minutes passed, he jumped down from the tree, right behind the blonde. It has been some time, Naruto. Chapter 18 The Mission in Nami no Kuni Part 2. It has been some time, Naruto. Itachi said, quite softly. Upon hearing the voice, Naruto promptly jumped away, landing a few feet away from the person. However, his face suddenly showed immense surprise as his eyes landed on Itachi Uchiha. Naruto's hands trembled slightly on seeing his brother-like figure after so long. His emotion soon changed to one of anger as he remembered the suffering Itachi caused to Sasuke. Meanwhile, Itachi simply stayed quiet and observed the blonde's face flash through several emotions since the short few seconds he made his presence known. Why have you come here, Itachi? Naruto questioned after regaining some composure. A bit taken aback by the demanding tone, Itachi still maintained a calm look on his face. He had no right to blame the young Senju for his demeanor. He believed majority of the people in Konoha had despised him for his actions against the Uchiha clan. Yet, he still had hope for a better future. I have just come to talk. The Uchiha replied, not moving from his place. Relaxing his posture a little, Naruto still kept his senses on alert, though he could not detect any hint of negative emotion from Itachi. Still, Naruto kept quiet, not knowing where to begin. There were numerous questions that were raging through his mind, but none ever made it to the tip of his tongue. Why? Questioned Naruto. He considered Itachi to be among the most loyal shinobi to the village, someone who would give his life in order to protect Konoha. For a mere second, the calm looks on Itachi's face faltered on sensing the pain in that single word. Nonetheless, he had chosen his path, one where he would remain in the shadows. It's meaningless to talk about something that has already happened. My interest in you and Sasuke is merely for my own gain. Itachi stated. Naruto narrowed his eyes upon hearing those words. This was certainly not the Itachi he remembered. Observing his attire, once again Naruto's eyes widened momentarily before he steeled himself. Have you come to capture me, then? You may be strong Itachi, but I won't go down without a fight. Naruto replied, preparing himself for a fight. He knew how strong the Uchiha was. Having sparred with him on many occasions earlier. However, he wasn't ignorant to the fact that Itachi's strength had certainly grown over the years, but he was confident in his own battle prowess. I'm surprised that you have such information. Where did you find it from? Itachi questioned. Although, he had an inkling as to where Naruto might have learned it from. I'm not telling you shit. Now, I'm asking you again. Have you come to capture me? Naruto yelled, his anger rising with each ticking second. Itachi sighed slightly at the blonde's antics. Suddenly Itachi disappeared from his view. On pure instinct, Naruto turned around with his arms up to block a kick. Naruto grunted slightly upon feeling the power behind it, but it was nothing that he wasn't used to. Without wasting any time, the blonde shot forward at a high speed. Impressed by the speed, Itachi ducked at the last moment under Naruto's punch and went for a sweep. Naruto smirked however, as his punch was merely a feint. Just as Itachi was about to sweep Naruto's legs, the blonde jumped in the air and went for a kick to the Uchiha's head. Although, Naruto frowned slightly upon noticing that his foot had hit a log of tree. He substituted himself. Naruto thought. However, his senses immediately picked up the buildup of chakra and turned to his left to see Itachi already finishing a set of hand seals. Heitan Gakakyu no Jutsu Itachi said, while blowing a large ball of fire in the direction of the blonde. Seeing the incoming danger, Naruto's hands phased through several hand seals before stopping on Tori Bird. Suiton Suryudan no Jutsu Naruto whispered, as water around him materialized in the form of a large dragon with glowing yellow eyes. The water dragon seemed to give out a large roar before racing forward towards the fireball. As the two opposing jutsu collided, Naruto had to shield his face from the shockwave. Even so, he kept his senses at high alert. Even though none of them could see through the mist properly, the Sharingan certainly gave Itachi the slight edge compared to Naruto. Meanwhile, Itachi still sat atop the branch of tree from where he had released his jutsu. He was certainly impressed with Naruto in regards to his Suiton manipulation. Making a hand seal for Futon, Naruto blew a large gust of wind from his mouth to dispel the mist around him. Yet again, Itachi couldn't help but be impressed. Such level of elemental manipulation from a kid as young as Naruto was simply unheard of. Jumping off the branch of the tree, Itachi once again landed in front of the blonde. Your skills in ninjutsu have grown tremendously over the years, Naruto-kun. You certainly honor the Senju clan. I do hope Sasuke isn't too far behind. Itachi mused calmly. You have no right to talk about Sasuke after what you did to the Uchiha clan. Naruto retorted with his fists clenched. It hurt him deeply to see Sasuke drift away from his usual self. Ever since that night, he had felt a darkness inside of his mind that just seemed to grow with every passing day. What hurt him even more was the fact that Itachi had joined the very group that were hunting people like him, Jinchuriki. Even if he wanted Itachi to pay for his crimes against Konoha and more importantly hurting Sasuke and him, this was not a fight he could win without fatal injuries. Plus, according to the information from Jiraiya, he knew that the Akatsuki traveled in pairs. He certainly wasn't ready to take on two S-rank shinobi and come out unscathed. I see. Itachi said, studying the blonde's facial expression. Every leaf in the village has two sides. The reality one builds around themselves merely depends on one's perception of life. But I do hope our battles in the future will be something to look forward to. The elder Uchiha added as he seemingly disappeared from view. As a few seconds passed, Naruto sighed and let himself fall onto the ground. He was rather perplexed with Itachi's sudden appearance and moreover by the last few words uttered by him. Naruto shook his head as if trying to clear his mind of unnecessary thoughts. It wouldn't do him any good to be distracted on his first important mission outside the village. Although, he would need to talk to his Kachan and Jiraiya Ojisan once he returned to Konoha. After about half an hour of running, Itachi came to a halt under a large tree. Only a few seconds passed when a large man holding a strange-looking sword stepped out of the shadows. "It's about time you came back. Did you manage to locate the Kyuubi?" Kisame questioned. The two members had received an intel a day ago about the Kyuubi Jinchuriki heading towards Nami no Kun. "Yes, he's here with his genin team and Kakashi Haddock. Leader Sama had merely asked us to test the Jinchuriki's strength. I'm sure in the coming days, we'll get to see what the young Senju is really capable of," replied Itachi stoically. Kisame merely shrugged in response, seemingly not worried about someone like Kakashi. The two then began walking towards the port of Wave Nation to keep their distance from the Konoha shinobi. It wasn't time for their group to come out of the shadows yet. Next day. It was early morning, and the bright rays of the sun peeked through the canopy of the trees as they lighted the area where Naruto lay asleep on the ground. After the last night fiasco with Itachi, the blonde had decided to stay out late and train himself to exhaustion. His fight with Itachi had shed some much-needed light on the fact that he was nowhere near close to fight a S-rank shinobi. While Naruto himself wasn't fighting at full capacity, he was certain Itachi had barely put any effort. He may have fought Itachi to a standstill last night, but for him, it wasn't enough. If he wished to protect everyone he cared about, he needed to get stronger. Last night he also understood the importance of controlling one's own emotion during a fight. Although, he knew that aspect of being a shinobi would be a challenge for him. He had always been outspoken about his thoughts and feelings towards others, especially those he considered close to himself. Alas, he knew that would come with experience. Hence, after spending hours on Taijutsu katas and an all-out Taijutsu spar with his clones, he had eventually fallen asleep in the clearing due to exhaustion. He stirred a bit due to the bright light, but kept his eyes shut as the breezy wind hitting against his skin made him feel extremely calm and soothing. His curiosity suddenly piqued when he felt the same chakra signature as that of the fake Kurigakure hunter Nin close him. He pretended to be asleep, wishing to know what the person wanted to do. As the hunter Nin approached closer to him, Naruto could clearly sense the conflicted thoughts that were arising in the person's mind. As a shinobi of Konohagakure, Naruto knew what he had to do. The person was a threat to him and his team and thus had to be eliminated. The hunter Nin, upon seeing the sleeping form of Naruto, immediately became on guard. He moved his left hand inside his kimono, where he generally kept his kunai. This person was a threat to Zabuza and their current mission. But he also did not wish to kill a person who could not defend himself. While he did choose the life of a shinobi, he was yet to take another's life in cold blood. However, he steeled himself and quietly approached the sleeping blonde. Just as the hunter Nin was a few feet away from his target, Naruto promptly jumped away. Before the person could make any move, the blonde made a single hand sign and branches of wood appeared all around the hunter Nin and wrapped around him to ensnare him to the place. The hunter Nin's eyes widened dramatically upon seeing how easily he had been captured. Yet, that wasn't what surprised him the most. "Mokuten Keke Genkai, who is this kid?" he thought incredulously. "I didn't think Zabuza would send someone after us so soon. What's your name, fake hunter Nin?" Naruto stated, keeping his eyes focused on the enemy. A look of shock appeared on the fake hunter Nin's face upon being found out already. "Haku," replied the fake hunter Nin, struggling to even move his hands in order to make hand signs. However, Naruto did not utter a single word for a few moments. Making another hand sign, a sharp wooden spike rose from behind the fake hunter Nin and pointed straight towards the back of his neck. The blonde loosened the wooden binding slightly to allow the person to speak more freely. "You have no liberty to be demanding any questions right now," Naruto stated with narrowed eyes. "Have you come to kill me?" he asked again. Upon feeling the binding loosen up around him, Haku immediately went to make hand signs for a Korami no Jutsu, but stopped when he felt the wooden spike behind him poke his neck. "He has me at a disadvantage. The moment I make a move, I will be dead before I can do anything," Haku thought alarmingly. He sighed and decided to simply answer the question. "No, that was not my intention. I am here to collect some medicinal herbs for Zabuza-sama," the person stated calmly. Naruto raised an eyebrow at the devotion his enemy portrayed toward someone like Zabuza. "Why do you follow him? A person like him who wishes to kill an innocent bridge builder is of no good. From what I could see, he has no sense of justice or regard for life. So, tell me why you follow him?" Naruto questioned keenly. He could feel the turbulent and angry emotion bubbling inside of Haku when he spoke those words about Zabuza, but deep inside, he could also sense the purity of his chakra. It wasn't tainted like Zabuza. He could just kill the person and be done with it, but for some reason, he wanted to know his reasons. "Because he saved me from a living hell. He gave me a purpose in life when I had none. To protect Zabuza-sama is my only purpose in life," he stated after a moment of quiet contemplation. Naruto's eyes softened a bit upon hearing what his enemy had to say. He felt his resolve shake a bit since he could relate with those words. His own cherished people had saved him from a living hell, which was the villagers' hatred. He shuddered to think what would have happened had he grown up an orphan. That is indeed noble of you think. But how can you go along with his plan to kill an innocent person? I'm sure someone like Tazuna and his family have done nothing against you. Naruto replied, a bit softly. We are shinobi. Merely tools to be used by people of power. Our mission is to kill the bridge builder and it is one which Zabuza-sama shall complete. I am simply a tool which Zabuza-sama uses to get things done. Nothing less, nothing more. Yet again, Naruto found himself narrowing his eyes at the person before him. He absolutely despised such thoughts. Yet he could not find it in himself to kill the person. My name is Senju Naruto and if you don't wish to die, leave this place along with Zabuza. Because if we do meet again, you too will die for certain. Everyone on my team is precious to me and from what I can understand, Zabuza is someone you consider precious. I will not begin to understand